Hey, I'm Alexander Constantine, and this is episode 23 of the Deceneus review, the best conversation podcast on Substack and the greater internet. Today's pretty exciting. Got our perma guest Fisto and then a very special guest, Udana Krasniki. I'm probably messing up her name. But before we get into fully introducing, our people, just kind of wanted to catch up on everything. My whole desk is a mess. I'm bumping into everything. My coffee's cold, and I'm a disaster. I literally walked in about 10 minutes before I started recording this, and I kind of wanted to talk about where I went. Right, I went to Savannah, Georgia. For you guys know that I live in South Carolina. I actually live on the border of South Carolina and Georgia. For all intensive purposes, the low country is the low country. It's identical. There's no difference between northeastern Georgia and southeastern South Carolina. The coastal side, it's more like the same city. So this morning I woke up, actually the dog woke me up by jumping a 70-pound body on top of me, got dressed, hopped in the car, and drove about 15 minutes, crossed the bridge on the Savannah River, and went to this little cool coffee shop in Savannah. Well, cool is relative speaking, right? Either way, the reason I went to Savannah was because a friend of mine, and it kind of acquaintance, a friend, a very young guy in his early 20s, invited me to have coffee with him and hang out. And he wanted to tell me that he's engaged to his girlfriend and they're going to be getting married. And he wanted to talk about that. And that was cool. And we sat around in this great little coffee shop and outside on the patio. And we talked about all kinds of stuff. And him and I have been friends for a year or two now. We talk about politics, life, music, and that type of thing. One thing I really love about hanging out with him and his friends and other guys his age is that it really makes me happy that here I am. I'm a 40-year-old and hanging out with these early 20 guys, and they're based, man. These guys are based, right? Let me tell you, for all the criticism of Gen Z guys and late millennials, most of the 20-year-olds or mid 20-year-olds I know are fucking cool people, and it makes me feel like the kids all are right. One thing he said to me today, he's like, "Hey man, I started reading this book by this guy named Nick Land," and I'm like, "Okay man, all right." Brought a tear to my eye that we're talking about Nick Land with a 23-year-old, and I thought that was really cool, and I wanted to make sure that guys our age, old men. I'm not old. I'm joking. I look like I'm 30 because I'm awesome. Guys our age, it's our responsibility to kind of mentor and support the younger generations, and it pisses me off when you have a bunch of people sitting there, constantly dogging on young people, when the young people are a lot more well-read and intelligent and actively involved in the culture that is not a corporate simulacra of the 1990s, like so much of my early millennial generation is stuck in. All right, so I think it's, like I said, once again, I think it's important that we build up these people and encourage them, and because they're the future. And the fact that a 23-year-old is telling me about his engagement to his girl. We met for coffee, and an hour after we got done and I headed back to South Carolina, he was actually going to a Latin mass at a Catholic church in Savannah. He invited me over, but I'm not a Roman Catholic. Two, I'm doing this podcast and I had scheduled already. But I really thought that I wanted to share that with everybody because I'm one of those guys that's like, if you're talking shit on young people, it just pisses me off. And I know people like Fisto, who's always on here, and he's on here today, he's listening to this right now, will probably agree with me, you know what I mean? Because he's a teacher, and the new generations are freaking pretty goddamn awesome and based compared to my own generation. So it made me happy, and it was awesome. The other thing I wanted to mention was Savannah itself, right? Savannah is an interesting city. When you think of Savannah, you think of, guys in white Colonel Sanders suits standing on their verandas with the Spanish moss and, sipping on battery punch, which is like a specific Savannah alcohol cocktail, or a sweet tea and that type of thing. You might think of that 1990s true crime journalistic book called in the Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil about the famous murder, and they got made into a movie. The movie kind of sucks, but the book was decent for what it was. But that's what you kind of think of. And Savannah is a beautiful old city. It's patterned on perfect squares, and well, at least the old town of it is patterned on perfect squares, and each square has its own statue and its own vibe. It's got a bunch of um, statues and coffee shops and really excellent restaurants. It's very touristy, and in the last, I would say, 20 years probably, unknown to me, of course, until I moved here, Savannah's been dominated by SCAD, right? And what is SCAD? SCAD is the Savannah, I believe, the Savannah College of Art and Design. And they've taken basically over a bunch of these really old, cool brick buildings all over the city. And it's an art school, right? And they have a museum, they have a tea room and stuff. What that means is that Savannah is actually completely a hipstery kind of art ho kind of city. All right. So if you drive downtown Savannah, you'll see rainbow flags, trans flags, a bunch of people, that are this weird goth slash punk slash scene girl. My waitress at not my waitress, but my server at the coffee shop was wearing a dog collar, and I think they were once born a male, which is cool and all. And yeah, it's an interesting place, and it's very much a little bit of, I think, maybe Brooklyn or Hollywood inside down south, basically, which is cool because those kind of places do build up a level of artistic and cultural interest that you tend to miss in other places. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. And I'm glad I got Sudana on here, and I'm going to introduce her in a second. But what I want to talk about today is the idea of creativity, whether it's writing, art, film, and how the community or the city around you forms that, how it, how your environment shapes your ability to create a creative artistic scene, maybe scenes in the past, and in the age of complete digital segregation and digital dispersion, of all of us becoming technological bug people, can we have scenes in that same way that in the past you had the New York punk scene, or the glam scene, or the mod scene in England, and the punk post-industrial thing going on, what I mean, or the Paris scene in the 19th century in the Cyclades era. So can that happen today in the 21st century? And do we see it anywhere? And of course, that leads to the big discussion about, is it better to live in a big city or in the country, right? Are you going to be a cosmopolitan, individual living in New York City, or are you going to be Ted Kaczynski living in the middle of the woods in a cabin, right? And how does that apply to artistic creativity? So before we start, I would like to introduce Sudana. She's a Substacker and a writer. She's awesome, and I'm sure most of you guys listening have read some of her work. It's usually depressing, and it's right up my alley, right? So welcome, Sudana, and of course Fisto's here, like always.
Hey, what's up,
Hi.
everybody?
Hello, thank you for having me.
All right. So Sudana, before we start, you want to introduce yourselves to our readers? Actually, you know what? Stop. Everybody hold it, okay? I forgot
Holding.
something critical here, right?
Uh-oh.
So on Substack, I said that I've become a tarot reading hipster crystal girl, right? So I'm going to perform some black magic here, and
Are you gonna pull my cards for me?
I'm just going to pull one card, okay? And it's going to be the theme of our episode, okay?
Oh, fuck yeah, do it.
So right now, I've lost all my Tradcath and Orthodox friends. They're gone. They've just deleted. They've hit stop on the fucking podcast now because I've just brought dark magic. But you know what?
As you deserve.
You know what?
My grandma has left the chat too, by the way.
I'm sorry. Okay. I am a fan of the Jungian subconscious ideas of the tarot card, okay? I joke around. I've actually been a fan of tarot cards for many, many years. And I don't think of them as a magical thing. I'm ultimately, I don't want to get into it too much, but take a Jungian perspective in creativity and on a subconscious level. And if people have read my Substack for a long time, I've experimented with all types of like semi-conscious writing and that type of thing. So this is exactly how I look at it, right? But to go real black magic, we're not going to use the Rider White deck, okay? Any guess which one we're going to use?
There's different decks.
Oh, there's
I was
lots.
about to say, I'm totally not a tarot girly.
Oh, okay. So we're going hardcore here. We're using
Oh my
Aleister
God.
Crowley's Toth deck. All right.
Oh,
Mr.
I will-
Crowley! We're going
I will-
straight up dark magic in this motherfucker tonight.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Wow. All right. Didn't know
Anyways,
that
I
we
do
were
think
gonna
that the Toth deck is actually kind of the coolest tarot deck.
Okay.
It's
All right.
the art is probably my favorite, and it really does tap into a Jungian psycho magic. The psychosphere.
I gotta say, I did not think this is where this was gonna go today.
Oh,
but
this is where we go.
I
Listen,
actually have a story. I actually have a story that this reminds me of, but I could tell it after we're done.
all right, like right now,
Similar vibe.
I've had like 7 cappuccinos, and last night I went to bed like at 3 a.m. Woke up at like 7 this morning, and I'm really feeling the dark magic of Savannah right now.
I
You know what I mean?
I didn't realize that when you said you were wired that it was literally going to be, all right, guys, we are raising voodoo corpses from the grave. Let's
Literally.
fucking go. Here we go.
it is
Listen,
spooky season.
All right.
fuck
I mean,
it.
all right. It's whatever. Just
it,
all
well,
right.
one, it
I had to adjust.
is Halloween. It is the month of All
That's
Hallows
true.
Eve, right?
First of all,
true.
that's for beginners. It's always Halloween for people
That's
like us.
true. That's true. Second, I live in the Savannah Low Country, the South Carolina. You know
Yeah,
what we
man.
have out here? We have boo hags. Have you ever heard of boo hags?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I
You guys
have
got the
not.
weird. You guys got the weird shit.
Oh, there is stuff out in these swamps. Okay, Savannah, you New Yorkers,
What is a boo hag?
a boo hag
Is it
is
a plant?
no, no, no. It is the spirit of some kind of swamp witch that comes into your house at night and sucks your soul.
Mhm.
Right? It's some kind of slave magic thing, right?
Yep.
And if you are ever in the low country area, which is like southern South Carolina and northern Georgia, like Savannah and Charleston and stuff, you will notice that a lot of the houses have porches, right? And the roof of the porch, like the ceilings of almost everything, is painted an interesting color of blue, right? And this blue is called haint blue, right? And haint blue is some like slave voodoo magic shit, right? And what it's there for, it's to trick the boo hags into staying out of your house. But they sell that shit at Home Depot, and it's called Haint Blue. They don't sell it anywhere else except here in the Low Country and like Charleston and stuff. But yeah, Haint Blue keeps the boo hags and the bad spirits out, right? Almost every house is that color down here. The other thing you'll see is blue bottle trees. Have you seen those before?
Mm-mm.
So a lot of places down here will have it looks like a stick coming out of the ground, and there's all these fucking blue bottles stuck into it. It looks like a Christmas tree made out of blue, like glass bottles, right?
I'm literally Googling. I'm like, what does this look like?
Yeah, it's a blue bottle tree, right? And the blue bottle tree, what happens is the evil spirits, go inside and get trapped in the blue bottles outside your house, so they won't come into your house. All right. So yes, my house is painted Haint Blue, and yes, I got a blue bottle tree because I don't fuck with no fucking Southern magic. Okay. All right.
Wait, are these actual bottles on the trees?
Yeah, they're bottles. Yeah. You can buy those, the setup and everything to like make it like everywhere down here. And yeah, you see this crazy voodoo shit everywhere, right? I mean, this is like, there's in my neighborhood, there's like graveyard with the pre-Civil War, even pre-Revolutionary War graves, and there's still people leaving coins and all kinds of voodoo shit on it. Okay, so I will keep the boo hags away. All right.
That's fair.
All right. So let's do this before we start. Let's do this. We're gonna pull one card out of
let's
Mr.
go.
Crowley's deck of pure psycho magical. I can taste the aluminum and ash, to quote True Detective. All right, we're just gonna cut it. All right, and I'm pulling it. Oh, well, that's interesting. So it is the Queen of Cups. I should have a video on, but I don't have a video on. It is the Queen of Cups. So this is basically the mother of water, right? Let me pull my book out real fast and I'll read it to you guys.
The mother of water. Perfect.
So
I've got a
basically,
hurricane coming.
oh shit.
That's
Well,
great.
you know what? This is really, oh yeah, oh shit, hurricane coming. Oh damn.
Bring it. Let's go.
Okay, so let's read about this real fast in my Aleister Crowley Compendium of Black Magic. Well, that's appropriate. Okay, the mother of the source and the inner mysteries. It represents erasing boundaries between dream and reality, right? It has the urge to cross borders and remove limitations. It's intuitive, depth of experience. It's the mother of dreams. The Sphinx, the prophetess. As a person, this card shows the loving mate, the kind woman, the artist, the medium, the healer, the emotional mother, and seductive Circe, the sorceress. Oh, anyways, basically, well, that's appropriate, I think. Water, and we have Sudan on here, the Queen of Cups, I guess, right? That's kind of creepy. Maybe I'll erase this part before the Inquisition comes after me. I'm never going to be invited on any Christian podcast anymore. Thank you, guys. So, on top of that, let's start, Sudanna. Why don't you introduce yourself? Are you a Queen of Cups, mother of dark dreams and seduction, or some sort of a hurricane appreciator? I don't know what's going on here.
I mean, if you would have asked me that 15 years ago, they did call me Hurricane Sue when I would get drunk, but so maybe a little bit.
Well, that's kind of creepy, right?
Yeah, that and Susie Boozy, those were the old monikers. No, I'm just a New York City girl. I think everyone knows that I write and live in Brooklyn, work in Midtown, so that's the logistics of that. Otherwise, I mean, I guess what we'd call a blogger. I don't really know what that term means. I don't really know what any of our pieces mean on Substack. We have the journalists, we have the bloggers, we have the essayists, the poets.
Right.
I feel like I dabble in a little bit of everything. It's really kind of a whatever the mood hits me that week.
That's how I am too. Mostly dark magic, like I was today.
Dark magic and tarot. Be your next piece. But yeah, that's basically it. I mean, I've never really, I think I mentioned it the last podcast that I was on when I was asked a little bit about myself, but I've always been a reader first. I've never really thought of myself as a writer or creative, which is interesting because I think you want to talk about creativity in New York City. I've kind of found the opposite growing up, is that I think we're like so busy and so focused on just surviving and getting through the day to day and what it means to like make it in New York that like the creativity piece is kind of lost.
Right.
So this was kind of my attempt to just kind of bring that back into my life. So
That's wonderful.
yeah.
So I like to refer to us as substackers or stackers, man, because bloggers,
Yeah, let's do stackers, I guess.
bloggers just sound so last generation,
Right.
I just joking. What do you think,
Again,
Krista?
I wasn't even a Tumblr girly. That'll probably surprise everybody, but
Oh, you know what? I never had a Tumblr.
yeah,
I
same.
missed that whole era. I had
I
a
know.
live journal. All right. I had a live journal when that was the
I had a
thing.
MySpace.
I had a MySpace. I actually remembered my password like a few years ago, and I went back and I looked at all the crap I posted on
They
there.
let you log back in.
They let
so
me log
jealous.
back in, right? And I was glad because I had a bunch of cool pictures of like me and my ex-girlfriend from that era and all the stuff that I saved and I sent to her and stuff. And who was basically that girl from Cyberpunk you posted on my Substack, Krista.
Misty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Misty, yeah. That was her
Misty, the tarot
personality,
card
right?
reader. Yep.
But and she went to Canada. What did she go to Canada for? Anyways, but I just had to delete everything because it was fucking embarrassing. Sitting with my live journal, I look back and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, the embarrassing, like melodramatic shit I used to write on there was so bad that I had to just delete it all. And I was embarrassed, but I saved all the pictures. But yeah, I skipped that whole era. I had Facebook when it was still like closed or whatever, when it was all
Right. I
private.
remember like starting a Facebook. I went to Hunter College in New York, and I remember like being in their like library, like not doing whatever assignment I had to do and like opening and starting a Facebook.
Yes, I never got on it with a college email. I got on it through some like private invite they were doing it using a Gmail account, and I got it when I lived in Chicago temporarily. And I remember how good it was when it first came out. You could like actually like talk to your friends, like you could actually be social on social media and use it to like coordinate. Because I remember
Yeah.
what we used to do with it is like I remember in the early days they had like the status thing where it's like Alex is doing this or whatever the fuck. You do you remember that shit? I don't know if it was like a little tagline kind of. And what we used to do is like I would, go on long drinking sprees through Chicago or later in Los Angeles, and I would post like, "Hey, I'm at the Red Room on Fourth, man. Whoever wants to come down, that's where we're at tonight." And then like 20 people would show up, or like
Yeah.
somebody would post, "Oh, hey, we're over at Alex's bar. This band's playing. Why don't you hit us up around 11?" Or we're all going to James's house at 2 after last call, and we're gonna keep drinking because he's got like a bunch of bottles of something. And that's what it was for, man. And like I remember that you used to meet people, and look, I'm 41, so maybe I'm older now, but we used to meet people at a bar, and I'd meet some girl at bars, even some dude at a bar, and be like, "Hey, you got Facebook?" And then like as soon as I'd walk out the bar, I would look at my phone, and it would be like, I would look on my BlackBerry Curve, by the way, the best phone ever made, and somebody would be like, Jamie added you to Facebook or whatever, and I'm like, "Oh, cool, hey," and I'm like,
Yeah, it's like
And
an
then you
address
spoke
book.
to Jamie for like 5 days until she answered you back.
Yeah, no, then I'd message him like, "Hey, well, nice meeting you. We're gonna be at James's house and blah 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 on this street tonight. You should show up all drunk and then we can fuck or something." And that was how he did it, right? I mean, does that click with anybody? Or was it just me?
No, it was same for me. I remember, and then the next part of that is when you uploaded all the pictures from your digital camera and added them all to Facebook. I don't know if you did that, but that
Oh
was big
yeah, that's what I
for a
did too. Yeah,
while. Yeah, so you would go to
The
said
digital
bar, meet
camera
Jamie.
for the kids at home, you had a separate device that took pictures, and then you would upload it to the internets, and then your telephone would not take pictures at that time. That was a that
No.
was a that was a black magic move later on in the history of
right.
technology.
Well, so the first cool phone I got ever was the fucking what do you call it? The BlackBerry Curve or whatever.
Yeah, I had a BlackBerry and then I had a Razor, and that was big, big time.
Right. I had a BlackBerry Curve, and I was walking through downtown Chicago by Ogilvy Station once in like fucking 4 feet of snow or something, and I dropped that bitch in the snow and it stopped working. So I was pretty upset about it. But
Just
luckily,
like that, just drop it in the snow and it's done.
well, I was kind of drunk and it stayed in the snow for a little bit, and then it
Oh, I
just
see.
Yeah, it
I see.
stayed there
There's
for
more
a
to it
while.
than
It
that.
stayed.
I was like,
yeah.
whoa.
And yeah, so then I went to Verizon and they're like, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know what happened to my phone. It just stopped working." And they're like, "Yeah, you're a
Sure.
retard." But they actually gave me a new one, so it was pretty cool. And then I think my first like smartphone was like what's it called? Some kind of Android something
Yeah.
or other. I've never owned an iPhone my entire
You don't
life.
have an iPhone?
I've never had an iPhone.
I'm
Well,
being roasted currently because I'm working with an iPhone 11 and everybody I meet is like, "Grandma, are you gonna level up?" And I'm like, "Nope, not until I have to."
look,
iPhone 11. I don't even know what iPhone I have.
I, I,
4.
What do I have?
I
Let's
just
find out.
hate Apple everything.
Oh, I
Yeah.
have a
I
12.
bought I
Wow,
bought
look
a
at me.
MacBook Pro many years ago. Maybe like actually I was still living in Chicago. I bought a MacBook Pro, and it was like the metal one with the cool. Anyways, I fucking hated it. I couldn't get it to do anything I wanted to do, and it's like it just lived under my bed for a long time for many years, and I finally just like I'm done with Apple stuff. I don't like it, and I stuck to like the Samsung. And now I've got a Google phone actually. I have a Google Pixel. And the reason I bought it was because I tested the iPhone, the Samsung, and the Google phones picked like a camera, and I wanted to get a really good camera phone to take to Europe when I went to Europe last year. And the Google Pixel had the best camera phone, and also you can like use it internationally, which is really cool. But yeah, I don't want to deal with Apple, man. It just annoys me. Like, and it's so like bougie. It's like having a Tesla. I can't stand that. Like,
God, you don't want to know how many of those fucking trucks I encountered yesterday in the city. It was
they're everywhere down here too.
everywhere.
They're everywhere down here, and they're fucking hideous
They're so
monstrosities.
goddamn ugly. I don't even know if they run or not, but they're just hideous, and on that alone, I'm out. Like,
Yeah, they're just ugly. There's no aesthetics. But yeah, like Fisto, you ditched me, man. Last week we
Did you?
recorded an
What?
episode with Alex with Alexander
Yeah.
Hamid. which I haven't posted yet. It's going to come out before this episode. I just I've been really, really tired and I haven't had a chance to do any editing. We ended up talking about old school video games, because I've been.
Yeah, I was excited about that. I was excited to hear that.
I know. So that will post probably tomorrow morning, and then this episode will post 2 days after. So we'll have a lot of cool stuff this week.
Woo.
But yeah, some asshole hillbilly driving down my street on his motorcycle. Wonderful.
On his arm.
But no, I was sorry. I missed that show. But honestly, I was saving myself for the Sudana episode because I know we've been trying to plan this. We've been trying to plan this for like 15 years now, or whatever.
I know that's very romantic.
I mean, all you had to do was ask.
Like, I want to be ready to rock. You know what I mean? No.
We were gonna do it earlier, but somebody here has a curfew and a bedtime, and he couldn't do like 8 p.m. on a weeknight.
Yeah, because I work fucking 87 hours a day for these kids. Okay, I got to get up in the morning.
You have the whole summer off. Don't start that shit.
Yeah, I know. I don't. Yeah, and I don't have now off. That's my point.
I commute into Midtown Manhattan 5 days a week. I take that godforsaken train system.
Dude, this cocksucker is going to be driving down my street on this stupid ass dirt bike.
Fine. It's a Sunday. What else would they be doing?
Fuck. No, motherfucker, I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning and I drive 40 minutes to work.
Same.
Yeah.
All
right.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's cool. Some of us are old. Not all of us have the freaking youthful energy of black magic like I do, and I can sleep only 4 hours a night. All right. It's okay. It's okay, dude. All right. I try to I've been trying to get myself some like legal pharmaceuticals for the last few months, right? I went to the doctor and I was like, test my testosterone. I'm probably low because I'm
and they were like, no, you're not.
And my testosterone came back 800. And I'm like, that has to be fake. Like literally like 800. That's above average, dude. Right?
The test literally got the text.
And if you look at me,
how high it was.
If you look at me, I've got gay hands, right? My ring finger is shorter than my index finger, and my lesbian
means?
Yeah.
Is that the technical term?
Yeah. Well, that's my gay coworker who's a lesbian always makes fun of me. She says, you've got gay hands, you've got soft gay hands. And I'm like, well, look, I'm a man of wealth and taste, a man of culture and art, and magic and,
Yeah. You don't work with your hands.
Of course I've got gay hands.
I get the opposite. On the outside, I've grown my nails out. I take really good care of them. But since I lift so often and for a decade now or longer, underneath, I have such callous construction worker hands. You
just got like the raspy caress. You're like,
all of it.
Yeah.
So anytime my poor boyfriend reaches to touch my hand, he's like, "What the fuck is wrong with your hands?" I'm like, "I'm sorry."
You go to give him a back rub, and it's just like sandpaper and shit.
Yeah,
right?
He's actually like, "Can you stop?" I'm like, "Absolutely, I can."
So I played guitar. I played guitar for a long time when I was cool, and guitar really wrecks your fingers on your left hand.
Yeah.
And for a while, if you play a lot of guitar or bass or anything, your left fingers become longer than your right hand. It's just kind of a weird thing. And you get these nasty calluses. And I still have some of them. But overall, I lift too. I've got a freaking gym in my house. I got a squat rack and all the cool stuff. And I spent like $5,000 buying all fancy stuff.
You went to Rogue and just had a
No, you know what? I didn't go with Rogue because it's expensive and I'm not that wealthy at all. I went with I forgot what company I went with. I went with the one step below, okay? And it's pretty cool. I even have a treadmill that I bought because it's too hot to run out here. So that's what my garage is. Right now it looks like ass because I've just been throwing shit in there and been lazy as fuck, right? And I've gotten fat in the last 2-3 months. But even with that, I don't really get calluses, man. Like I just got bitch hands. I can't help it. I'm soft, my hands are soft.
Do you use chalk when you lift? And this is taking a whole different direction, but
I don't. I don't use chalk. I don't, and I just have soft hands. Even when I was deployed to Afghanistan, the infantry, I was crawling around fucking places and knocking doors down and stuff. I never wore gloves and I still never got calluses. I would have a callus for a few days and then it'd go away. But maybe I'm just moist. I'm a water.
Yeah, you're just I'm not going to say that word because
maybe I'm the daughter of the seas.
Maybe that card was pulled for you.
Yeah,
actually.
maybe it wasn't for you, right?
For you.
Yeah, makes sense. Those moist hands pulling the cup that's all about water, or the card that's all about water. I guess
and it illustrates the point when people, that come on this podcast, me, so what do you want to talk about? I'm like, I don't know. We're going to talk about random crazy shit. But you're a writer. You write, and I actually really like your writing. It's depressing, very Dostoevskian.
Especially the last piece. I was gonna go on a thing and be like, no, it's not depressing. There's funny. The last one was literally like, why I love being depressed, part 1. So
yeah, that's pretty much it. You dropped the melancholy, infinite sadness, the best Smashing Pumpkins
great album.
You know what's? Do you like Smashing Pumpkins, Fisto?
Oh, absolutely, of course.
So
without hesitation.
I never when I was growing up I grew up in the 1990s MTV era. So my friends and I, we used to go to school, like we were in middle school, we'd come home from middle school and we would sit down and we would just watch MTV all day, like 24.
This was pre-TRL MTV too.
Yeah, it was pre-TRL, right? And like Beavis and Butthead was on, and then Daria was on, and then it was like a bunch of other shit, and like you had videos. And then because we were really fucking cool, right? We would stay up until like midnight on a Saturday, and that's when Matt Pinfield's Headbangers Ball would come on.
Oh my god, I love Matt Pinfield.
And you can catch some Marilyn Manson or that fucking Tool video for Sober with the little creepy puppet thing that imprinted itself in my brain. You know what I'm talking about, Fisto? You've seen that, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right. Now a little
ages ago, but yeah.
Quick aside, the dog I showed you, the little tiny dog I showed you, Sedana?
Yes.
So, this motherfucker, god damn you, dude. Do you guys hear that, right?
Oh yeah.
Do you hear my neighbor / landlord like doing construction in his backyard, by the way? Yeah.
No, I don't hear that.
Yeah, well, this goob, this like hillbilly goob, is just driving back and forth like a total chud on the street, on his little dirt bike. I don't know what he's doing. I'm like, wait, what are you doing? I've never even seen this dude. Anyways,
this is what we get for doing it in the middle of the afternoon.
I know.
I'm on a Sunday, no less, where everyone's
on a Sunday.
This guy is like, he just drank his moonshine. Look, I make it sound like I live in like the deep south. I do live in the deep south, but this is like the yuppiest, like freaking.
That guy's out there in the street, like, man, some asshole in there is doing his podcast.
I'm like, hey man,
can you not
wrecking my vibe, wrecking my bike vibe?
Yeah, I'm calling him like some hick, but literally that motorcycle he's riding is like $80,000. I'll never be able to afford that forever. Yeah. And I'm like,
that guy out there doing Excite Bike IRL.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here, I'm trying to talk about dark magic there, Cletus.
We're trying to pull a fucking tarot card,
Yeah.
And he's trying to pull some sweet jumps, okay?
Yeah, he's
relax.
Popping wheelies back and forth on his dirt. Anyways, actually I know who it is. It's my neighbor from across the street. He's actually South African, which is hilarious. He's a professional bodybuilder. He's this yoked up giant dude on every type of steroid, and he's awesome. And he'd beat the shit out of me if I ever said that.
I was gonna say, this is why you're not saying it to his face.
Yeah, no, I'm like, hey bro.
He quietly whispered that part. He was like, yeah, actually.
I can't wait until like a couple days from after this releases and we find out Alex is like, yeah, so hey man, I listened to your podcast.
No, I know. I love him. He actually does, I think, and his daughter babysits my daughter. And it's pretty cool.
The bike's pretty cool. I mean, it's making me think of Excite Bike.
I know.
It feels like video games. There we go, boy.
Like I listen to Red Scare, and I feel like in every episode of Red Scare, there's like police sirens going off in the back. I'm like, yeah, it makes me think of home back in Los Angeles.
And you would think that it would be here, right? That it would be the New Yorker with the police sirens, but silence.
Right. See? Right. But yeah, I've got a what the hell was I saying? What were we talking about again?
Talking about music, I think.
Oh yeah. So I used to listen to MTV, right? So my little dog's name is Quinn, right? And everybody's like, "Oh, she's named after Harley Quinn." I'm like, "No, motherfuckers. She is named after Quinn, Daria's sister."
Duh.
Daria. Like, what's up, Quinn? Because that's her personality. And I tell people that, and nobody knows, but I'm sure Sedana knows because.
Of course, I was a total Daria.
Yeah.
And then my other dog, my new one, the big one, her name's Star, but she's named.
I thought you were gonna say Trent because that would have been really awesome.
No, that would have been cool, but I only have female animals. That's my rule. I only do female animals. I don't know why. I find their personality more interesting. And she's it's Swiss Shepherd, and her name is Star. It's actually Stardust, but she's named after that Neil Gaiman novel. And the reason was because he had a dog of the same breed, so that's why I named it after his novel. And even though he's some sort of a rapist now, but whatever, I still like him. And
the dog isn't, so we're good.
If the dog is, the dog is. Dogs do, right?
Exactly.
The dogs do, kind of.
Right, but she's actually named after this kids show, called Star versus the Forces of Evil, which I'm pretty sure neither of you have ever seen or heard of because you're not parents.
No.
But it's a really good show. It's like another stupid fucking show on TV that my daughter watches. Completely inappropriate, but I like it.
And, I was raised on like Vince McMahon's WWE, so
right.
Yeah.
I mean,
I remember watching like Ren and Stimpy, so like
yeah.
Right. My childhood movie was Total Recall, so I'm completely fucked up.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
happens.
Dude, I think you meant was it somewhere on notes like weeks ago? You mentioned that, and literally, I vividly remember we had like 4 tapes growing up because we didn't have cable for a while, and Total Recall was one of the movies, and I remember watching that shit like every week.
You're like, whoa, dude! Like she's got 3 titties. What? That's that imprints in your brain, So forever, forever, I will be stuck in that mode. But yeah. So there's that. There's, all this crazy shit going on in my neighborhood, listening to music. I've got dogs doing crazy stuff. So we'll go back to talk about Sudanna, though. All right, because that's that's the interesting person. Me, just sitting here with my black magic and my dog's named after 1990s cartoons. But so you're a Substack writer. You write some really interesting stuff. It's autofiction to a certain degree, right? Which is kind of the popular thing right now. We had Mr. Caleb Caudell on here 2 weeks ago. And his book is awesome, actually. Like,
and he just did a book reading, I believe, in Brooklyn.
He did. He did.
Yeah. I wonder how that went.
He wrote a post about it. I haven't got a chance to read his post that describes it because I've been fucking slammed doing stuff this week in the hurricane thing. But it's funny because I like the depression kind of angle of your work, specifically the last one. And I've been listening to a lot of Smashing Pumpkins lately, and growing up in that MTV era, I liked the Smashing Pumpkins, but they were not my favorite band.
Oh, honestly, not mine either. They would probably be like number 20 on my list if I had to make one. So.
Right. I kind of like ignored them. I there was like 1979, which I liked, and Tonight, and I remember when that video came out. It was freaking cool.
Did you own a Zero t-shirt like everybody else?
I never owned a Zero t-shirt, actually. I never liked them. I do now.
Like Smashing Pumpkins are like that band that like you only ever think of when someone else brings them up.
Yeah.
You never actually think of them on your own.
Well, which
is kind of weird because somebody has to think of them to bring them up. But
who's a bigger fan than I think any of us here, and they are on tour currently if you want to catch them. But Prester John, he's like huge into the Smashing Pumpkins. So
he is.
That's like his total jam.
And he started a new podcast that's going to be debuting like next Monday, I think, which I'm excited to listen to. Well, so I never liked Smashing Pumpkins, but my younger brother, his girlfriend, now his wife, so my sister-in-law is actually, she's a year older than me and he's younger than her. Yeah, got himself an older woman. Good job, bro. I love you, Jen. Right? Nice. She is like the Smashing Pumpkins, like mutant freak super fan. Okay, wow. Like when I met her, everything was just Smashing Pumpkins, like everything. Like I think she's seen them like 100 times. Like
that's like me and Bush.
Yeah, I love Bush.
Seen Bush 100 times.
I've seen them like 8 times. Like literally and the thing is, they tour very often. Like literally almost every year.
Do they still play? Old Gavin?
Oh my God, I just saw them last March.
No shit. Like I feel like they disappeared after the whole breakup with Gwen Stefani.
Gavin has a huge fucking following. I mean, as says the girl who's seen him 8 times, but
yeah, I mean, that first album was a banger, okay? There's no doubt. Like Come Down and all those songs are great. And but yeah, I kind of ignored Smashing Pumpkins until I met, my sister-in-law Jen, and she was just, she's an obsessive. I think she just recently saw him, like, I feel like she goes, like, everywhere to go see Smashing Pumpkins, and she always shells out all the big money for it. he doesn't take my brother at all because she doesn't want him ruining it. So he doesn't even.
Honestly, I respect that. Like, I've taken a few like ex-boyfriends to shows, and one vividly, Stone Temple Pilots, one of the last performances that Scott Weiland was alive for. Um, we went to go see, and this dude complained about like the drive there. It was August, so it was too hot. I was like, you fucking uncultured swine. Like,
Yeah, no, yeah, I know that too. Like, I had a friend buy me 2 Pearl Jam tickets one time, and I ended up taking my dude friend instead of my girlfriend for exactly that same reason. I was like,
yeah,
hey,
like
man,
there are people who are vibe ruiners, and you just can't let them like shit on your stuff.
I like, girlfriend, you're cool and all. You're
Right.
cool and all, with your tarot cards and your magic and stuff. But me and Satchel over here, we were listening to Pearl Jam when we were like in sixth
Yeah.
grade,
Yeah.
I
and
can't.
we were
I can't
vibing
help
on school shooterism of Jeremy and all that cool stuff. And yeah, you're staying home, okay? You're
This
gonna.
is literally why I'm taking my niece Maddie to go see Billie Eilish with me in a week and a half because like I'm not gonna take anybody who's not into her and like ruin this for me. And like Maddie's gonna be like super excited about it. So yeah, you got to pick your people.
Oh my God! Now the fucking ice cream truck's driving out in front of my house playing. Do you hear that?
I don't hear
Jesus.
the ice cream truck. The one thing I wish I did hear, I don't hear.
The ice cream truck.
Yeah, that would have been great. Like
And now your child's gonna barge in and ask for money.
No, my daughter's my wife took her to play mini golf or something like that.
Oh, now I hear it.
And
Oh
it's
yeah,
parked right in
it's
front of my
there.
fucking house.
Yep.
I just wish I had like an RPG right now and just could like shoot it from my second floor.
It's the same fucking song I heard when I was a kid.
Well,
What the
yeah,
hell?
yeah.
Is it just
We're never recording on a Sunday ever again, dude.
No.
I'm sorry, you guys. I thought
No.
this was a good idea.
No.
I'm just
Listen.
joking.
I'm just saying, ice cream truck blasting, Smashing Pumpkins with the dude doing jumps off his bike.
Oh,
That's
that'd
the
be
vibe.
awesome. So
And
yeah,
it's all happening in his town, not mine, mind
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
on the topic of Smashing Pumpkins, I love that Billy Corgan's become this crazy based Alex Jones right winger, which is hilarious.
I was waiting for somebody to mention that because
Wait, he has?
yes.
Oh yeah, he's straight up Alex Joneser, which is amazing, you know.
Oh God.
So is the dude from what the fuck's the lead singer of Stained? He's taken a really weird turn, though.
But I mean, Billy Corgan's been a fucking weirdo. He looks like Nosferatu.
I mean, he's always been a weirdo.
I was gonna say
though.
he does. He does. I just pulled up a picture of the man.
Yeah.
And it's definitely like this guy's straight out of a Tim Burton film.
Yes.
Right. And I mean, look, my favorite
he's a Batman villain.
My favorite album, obviously, Melancholy is their best album.
Right.
But I really like Ava Adore, and I like that song a lot.
Oh, it's such a beautiful song, yeah.
And I will share that the night I met my wife at a bar, we went back to my house and we made out to Ava Adore playing in the background. It was really cool. So now it's my special song from 10 years ago. 12 years, 13, I forgot. A long time ago. So I do like that song, and I like a lot of the Smashing Pumpkins stuff. I used to think Darcy was hot, but I don't know if she's insane now or something. Is she even in the band anymore? She's gone?
That's
the bassist?
Look it up. I don't know.
I know James Eha's like still around and stuff.
Yeah.
We used to James Eha, the guitar player to Smashing Pumpkins, he had a solo album. It was really fucking bad and weird. And I had this friend Keith. He would always burn James Eha album on a CD player, and we would drive around listening to it. And he'd pop it in his car, and we'd drive around Los Angeles. And after like 20 minutes, I'm like, "What the fuck are you listening to this shit?" So he'd eject it and toss it out the window. But he did that like 4 times because he kept on reburning it just so he could listen to it for a little bit, and then he'd get irritated and toss it out the window of the car while we were driving. So it's like, fucking James Eha, get the fuck out of my car. And I don't know. I think he just liked it because James Eha's Asian and he was Asian. So like he felt like validated or something. I love you, Keith. But yeah. So I do like Smashing Pumpkins now. And there's some bands that I can't stand that I used to love, like Pearl Jam. I've seen them like 4 times and I fucking can't stand them now. It makes me cringe when I do.
I do like me somebody better. So
he's just so like Sean Penn-ish now, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna never save the Dolphins and shit." Man, fuck you, Eddie Vedder, dude. Like, it's dolphin saving asshole. Like you didn't like if you're gonna become old and still play, you just gotta go weird. You gotta go Alex Jones crazy.
Yeah.
And like, or like Gwen Stefani become like an alien, like with plastic
Yeah.
surgery and shit, you
Yeah.
know? Like she's like unrecognizable. You're like, what happened to you, girl? Like, you like,
And then she married Blake Shelton of all. I just don't, I really don't get that one, but okay.
well, you know, and then my favorite thing recently, of course, is my number one girl, Lana Del Rey, marrying the alligator
You
wrestler.
know how I feel about that. Good for her.
That's what I say too. I mean, you know
Good
what?
for her.
I'm waiting for her like country banjo Louisiana album to drop, and that's going to be exciting. All right,
Yeah.
maybe she'll actually get a Grammy because she's been robbed. All right, and you know, for us Crystal girls and Tarot girls, I always like to consider myself. You know, the big debate between whether it's T Swift or Lana Del Rey. The way I look at it is that T
Oh, it's
Swift.
always, there's no debate. Who's debating?
Well, no. The assholes are
Debate that.
debating it, but the T Swift and the Lana Del Rey is one that goes back to the beginning of time. It's basically the Tolstoy versus Dostoevsky debate. All
Yeah.
right. So Dostoevsky girls are Lana girls. Okay, that's how it is, and they're the right ones. If you're into Tolstoy, you're probably into T Swift. Okay. That's just my opinion. You can write that on a thing. But how about your influences? Okay, tell me about what are you into? What kind of stuff influences your writing? What kind of music? What kind of film? What kind of art? What's your
I mean,
angle?
honestly, let's see my angle. Growing up, like I started mentioning earlier, I was definitely a reader first, so I never considered myself a writer of any kind. I mean, I dabbled, obviously, I kept a journal at home and I wrote bits of poetry, but I really think it was in the 90s when I saw other females like Fiona Apple, Courtney Love, women of that era, Sarah McLachlan even, who wrote like beautiful, poignant, like deep heartbreaking pieces that I started to think that like I could also express myself this way. So I would say it was definitely other female like musicians. Obviously, I'm not a singer or songwriter by any means, but they've definitely influenced like the way that some of my writing comes out. I think somebody mentioned it once, but there's lots of small bits of musical influences. There was one piece where I think I woven in a few lyrics from Nirvana's Lithium, another really great uplifting story that I wrote. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's the one
That
Whenever
about
I
your.
think of Nirvana, I think of uplifting.
There's
yes,
that piece
Every
exactly.
time.
of
Every time.
the first date that you wrote about or something like that, which was really good. I really like that one. And
That
that
one, yeah, and that's literally true story. Like that date went about as blandly as it could for like an uninterested 15, 16-year-old. And I remember the dude driving and that fucking Nine Inch Nail song just started up and I left like super changed. I like looked over and I was like, what am I listening to? And he was like, oh, it's Nine Inch Nails. And I mean, Trent Reznor is probably one of my favorite artists. Sorry, Grammy and Academy Award winning Trent Reznor is one of my favorite artists in any medium. I think he's a phenomenal writer. He's a phenomenal composer. And I think he even has like a clothing line out now. Like I have to go back to that last interview that he did with GQ when
yeah.
Challengers was
I
really big.
haven't I haven't followed up on him at all. I haven't. I used to
What?
read his stuff. I just
So
haven't really kept up.
he did the soundtrack to Challengers, which was an okay movie, but a better soundtrack.
I've
Uh,
been meaning to watch Challengers for a while now.
yeah.
Because I don't like her. I don't like the actress very much. And I mean, I haven't really seen her in a lot besides like Dune, which I couldn't stand. But I
Did you
heard
not watch what the fuck was it? Euphoria?
no, Euphoria is like on my like list of shows to watch. I'm such a spaz. I don't have time for a lot of
Yeah.
stuff. The
Yeah.
last show I really liked that I watched was White Lotus. I really loved White Lotus.
Oh, I
Both
love White Lotus, especially
I,
season two. Hell
I
yeah.
love season two also, and it's one of the best like secretly based television shows out there that like it's great. And I think Euphoria introduced both her and what's her name, everybody's favorite right
Sydney
now,
Sweeney.
Sydney
Yeah.
Sweeney, right? But then Sweeney was also on the first season of White Lotus, which
White Lotus.
she was good.
And she was reading Dostoevsky in that fucking scene, which I don't think she really read. She was just holding the book at the pool, if you can remember.
Right,
But
I do remember. Well, they did a lot of that where she was holding a lot of books, and I think her character and her and the other girls' characters are based on Red Scare on Akachi and freaking Dasha. I think they said that in an interview. So I thought it was pretty funny. I like that show a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard some not good things about the tennis movie Challengers, and I heard
It's
some good things.
Yeah, it can go either way. I kind of went like with very low expectations. So anyway, I watched it on a flight on my flight to LA. So I figured if ever there was a time, then was fine. But yeah. But anyway, back to the influences. So I grew up reading, I don't know if it surprises anyone or not, but just a lot of classical literature, which I just found incredibly beautiful. Like, I guess maybe because I grew up in the Bronx, so surrounding myself with worlds and stories that were so far removed from like what I was experiencing at home was pretty important to me as an outlet for, an immigrant child growing up in like the 90s of New York. So there was a lot of Bronte sisters, a lot of James Joyce, Thomas Hardy. Wasn't too big into Shakespeare. And then like in the early 2000s, that's when like the confessional memoirs kind of took over. They started being introduced. So I remember like the first book of that nature that I really read, where someone was telling like the truth of like these uh tales of girlhood. I don't know if you guys remember Prozac Nation
I do
by
Oh
remember
yeah,
that one.
yeah.
Yeah.
which is also a phenomenal movie with Christina Ricci, great actress.
Yeah.
But it was
Whatever
like
happened to
books
her?
like that like really probably started shaping my own like writing and speaking style like creatively. And I guess here we are now.
That's awesome. Now, you said you were an immigrant. Where were you born?
I am from Kosovo originally. I came here when I was like very young, like two
Okay.
years old young.
Yeah. So you're from my part of the world, right?
Yes, we are cousins as our ancestry DNA showed us.
Okay. So did you come over here in the 90s during the
Yes, 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 exactly. During that whole Balkan conflict,
Oh, hot
we
damn.
came over. Yeah.
Spicy
So
meatball.
in our household, Bill Clinton is kind of a small hero. So we all have to like bow down to the Clinton administration for doing what he did in the early 90s.
Right, right.
Yeah.
If I while we're cousins, we were probably from on the opposite side of the that conflict because being a Romanian Orthodox, we tended to be Serb
Yeah.
aligned. But
Well, 60 what like 55% of my when I did my ancestry, 55% is actually Croatian for my mother's side.
mhm,
And then the rest is Albanian for my father, who ended up in Kosovo, and Greek. So
right.
yeah, it's
Yeah, but
pretty big.
the whole South Balkan area is a mess, and
It's total mess.
it's funny when you a lot of Americans are just not well read. Well, not well. They don't understand the inner European, Eastern European inner tensions where we all hate each other, even though we all look the same, And it's funny. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I'm a Romanian, and Romanians kind of are the weird neutral in the middle. Or,
Yeah.
we're the unique ones because we're not really Slavic, right? We're not Slavs at
No.
all. But I am because I'm actually not fully Romanian. I'm partially Russian. My dad was born in Moscow. So I guess I am a Slav and I did my DNA thing too. And it's all like, with freaking the Baltics, basically. That's where my
Yeah,
DNA is
same,
from,
same.
right? And what's interesting is I grew up in an area that had a lot of Croatians in it. And for you guys that don't know, Croatians in the conflict between those people and the Yugoslav wars and the Kosovo War and everything was a three-way religious civil war, basically,
Absolutely. Yeah.
between Roman Catholics, which are the Croatians, the Greek, the Eastern Orthodox, which were the Serbs, which were basically the majority in the area, and then you had your Muslims, which were the Bosniaks and the Albanians,
Right.
and there are European Muslims. And people always forget that there's European Muslims that are not Middle Eastern Arabs at all.
At all.
And you
No.
got Albanians, which are European Muslims, and then you also technically have Chechens, which are also like basically ethnically Slavic Muslims, up north. So you do have blonde, blue-eyed Muslims living in Eastern Europe.
You're like most of
No,
my cousins from Bosnia, like from that
right,
side. They're all
right.
blonde and very blue-eyed.
Right. So I had a bunch of Croatians living next to me, but I also had a bunch of Serbs living next to me. And these guys would like street fight all the time in San Pedro, California. Like it was just the most hilarious thing ever. Now as Romanians, we just hate Hungarians, so it's a completely different thing. And those guys aren't even Slavs. Get out of
No,
here,
we never
Mongols. Mongols. I'm just joking. I actually like Hungarians, and there's a lot of cross border ethnic intermingling. But how was it growing up an immigrant in a immigrant city? Talk about that. I was driving around listening to Gogo Bordello yesterday, so I felt
Oh
like a
shit.
Oh, I was so
like
happy
a
to see that. I was
like
so
a
happy to see that.
Slav driving around listening
Heck
to,
yeah.
which was funny. But yeah, how was it like growing as a Eastern European, Southeastern European immigrant in
I mean,
New York?
so there were I mean, like, I think honestly, it's not all that unique of an experience to anybody growing up with um parents that are, deeply cultural, and that culture isn't necessarily what we, consider to be American.
Hmm.
Um, I remember growing up and like hating my name only because I'd never ever met, and I haven't to this day met another Sudana, and I wanted to change it to like Jessica or some shit. And I didn't want to learn Albanian. I resented the fact that English was not my first language. Um, there was no like McDonald's at home. We just had to eat, probably a lot of what you were eating. While people had cannolis in the Bronx, I was being served baklava all
Baklava is a superior food, but to make a quick note on my immigrant experience, so my mother, because a lot of people always think, oh yeah, you're Eastern European. Well, so my mother wasn't an Americaphile, I guess,
Was she?
Ameriphile, right? So her dream, her entire life was to move to like Los Angeles. Her entire life was Southern California. She was a
Sounds like
California
me.
dreaming girl. So the first chance she got, back in 91, she decided to bully my dad into moving us all to Southern California when she had the chance. And when she got here, she became fully Southern Californian. She rejected all Eastern Europeanness, right? Like she would refuse to step in like an Orthodox church. She never went to a Romanian community, anything. She never like, she was just American. So I grew up on a diet of Costco pizza and hot dogs. Okay,
See,
so
that's what I wanted. That's literally what I wanted. Like, I would be embarrassed anytime my friends came over because we were speaking like three other languages in the household. None of them understood. So it was all that like, that preteen and then teenage rebellion and angst against your like that dueling culture and dueling identity that you have. Um, all of that stuff was going on with me. Also, it's just the oldest child too, like the oldest daughter of a bunch of Eastern Europeans. So there was a lot of pressure for me to kind of like fit what their expectation was. And then lo and behold, you brought me to New York City. So I'm over here raising myself to be, some new Carrie Bradshaw, and you want me to go ahead and be
well,
uh
why are you not a doctor?
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Why wasn't I a doctor? Or why am I not married with four kids, which is
Or a
equally
dentist or something.
right. Either would have been acceptable, but not whatever I am today. But I started with that to say that, obviously 20 years later, I can't like kind of thank them enough. Like my parents and I are a lot closer now than we were obviously when I was growing up. Because I think it's just such a interesting experience, and I'm really grateful to have grown up in like such a melting pot of cultures, like to be trilingual, to have some kind of history that isn't just derived from here. I don't know, I really appreciate that. And like just this summer my nieces and my sisters spent like a month and a half traveling through Croatia, Albania, the whole nine, going back home a little bit, and to see them kind of connect to their culture. Like my nieces now they speak Albanian, they speak Croatian, all that good stuff. So I wouldn't change it for anything. I'm sure, again, had you asked 16-year-old Sudana, she fucking hated all of it. All I wanted to do was play my guitar in my room, reading my, copy of Wuthering Heights and listening to Fiona Apple. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I feel you because I to a certain degree I connect like that. I grew up, being a Southern California just dude, who skateboarded
yeah.
and listened to Sublime, and I surfed because that's what you did. And then, I went to college for art before I dropped out. And it's interesting because I also recently went back to Eastern Europe last year, and I went there. Originally, I was going to go there by myself, and I flew out there and stayed with, and then my cousins decided to come, and one of them lives in England and the other one lives in Bucharest, and they were all there. My uncle decided to come. He lives in Malta, and they all kind of like everybody kind of it turned into like impromptu, spur of the moment, last minute family reunion. And
Yeah.
I walked out of the plane, right? I walked out of the plane and I walked into the airport, and my uncle was sitting there, and my cousin, one of my youngest cousins, was sitting there. And that was the first time I met her. She's an adult, she's traveled the world and everything. And I just never got a chance to meet her. And we get in the cab, and the first thing they do is shove a cigarette in my mouth, and we go to drinking, and we didn't stop. Like, we didn't stop drinking at all. And in one of my drunken, insane, like, decisions, I told my wife, I'm like, hey, why don't you just come too? Okay. Just grab the kid and just fly out here, like right now. So my wife grabbed the credit card and basically, bought tickets for 5 hours later and hopped on a plane with my kid and flew from South Carolina all the way to Bucharest. Spur of the moment, it cost me like $6,000. I'm still paying for it. But, I felt like in my drunken haze, I thought it was important to have my kid see her great grandma before she passes away, and to see the house that her grandpa, my dad, who she's never going to meet because he passed away a long time ago, and kind of like see where I was born. And I thought that was really important. And they did. And we spent a bunch of time in Eastern Europe, and it was amazing. What was interesting, and I don't know if you experienced this, was that I left Romania when I was 6 years old. And it was in 1991, after the fall of the whole Berlin Wall, the whole, fall of Ceausescu and all the Soviet stuff. And my memories of Romania were, during the communist era. I mean, I have, 6-year-olds memories of like the way things are. And this is my first time back in freaking like 30 years, right? So I go back, and I was a foreigner, I was a California guy in the city I was born, but I still felt at home, strangely. Like my uncle was amazed at this, right? My uncle and my aunt who were there. I had this vague memory of my grandpa taking me to a park and putting me on this statue, right? And it's a statue of Atlas, the Atlas holding the globe. Right. And I've always had this memory, like it's like my grandpa passed away when I was like 4, but I've had this deep memory, and there's a picture of it I have too that my grandma had somewhere. And I remembered where this fucking statue was. It was wild. I would walk the streets of Bucharest, and it's completely a different city than it was, 30, 40 years ago. It's completely modern. It's just cars everywhere, and like McDonald's and Starbucks and shit, and Gap stores. But I remember how to get there. And I found in this huge park, this Central Park-sized park, I found this fucking statue, right? And my uncle was like, how the hell did you remember that? I mean, I'm 41 years old, and this happened when I was 4, and I haven't been in Romania since 1991, right? And I found this statue, and it was the coolest thing. Like, it was like an ethnic memory almost that was built into me, that I didn't look it up online or anything like that. I remembered where it was from my childhood. And it was such a weird place because I've lived in Tokyo. I've been to Hong Kong, Thailand. I lived all over the place, but I never felt at home in those places. Like, I could never live in Japan forever, even though I love Japan. But when I got back to Bucharest, like I knew where everything was. You know what I mean? And it's wild. And like, it felt like my place. And my wife loved this. She's like, we should just move back to Eastern Europe, even though my wife's American, and she's actually, she's 100% American, was born here. And it was weird. Did you have an experience like that at all when you went home?
Well, I did. I mean, first, let me preface by saying I was much younger when I came here, so I don't really have a ton of core memories from like Kosovo or Croatia or any of that to build with. Most of those came like me as a child in New York. But going back, like just having family embrace me that I hadn't seen in decades, like you said, and they all have like daughters now, so they're cousins with and with my nieces, and they're all hanging out, and just to watch that was kind of really beautiful. And that piece about you saying that, like, you fit in, but you were also kind of a tourist in and I guess what your own country is. I felt that way too, because my Croatian is so, God, it's just my accent is not like, you can tell that I wasn't raised in Belgrade.
Right.
So Yeah. So it's so not proper. It's definitely a New York City girl speaking Slavic based languages for sure. So everyone could kind of tell that I'm not from there, but culturally it's the fucking same. Like walking down some of those streets almost look like what 90s Little Italy looked like. And I'm talking about like Bronx Little Italy,
Right.
what it looked like then, like just the little cafes with all of my uncles kind of like lined up, smoking their cigarettes and drinking their espresso with their shot of raki next to them. So it's just, yeah, fitting in some place where you haven't been in 30 years is kind of an amazing experience. And I also feel that same way whenever I go back to the Bronx. I don't live there. I haven't lived there in quite a long time. But going back there and like not having to look up, like you said, like where certain areas or cafes or parks were that we played in, it's, I guess your body still remembers. It's
Right.
that you were like 6 years old and you still have that memory.
You know what? I don't feel like that when I go back to California.
Yeah.
I don't feel at home. And I grew up in California. I lived in California from 1991 really until 2 years ago, with a
Wow.
give or take a few blocks of living in Chicago and in Tokyo. But I grew up in Southern California, and it doesn't feel like home anymore. My family still lives there in Orange County and in LA County, and I don't feel like home anymore. I feel like, but California is unique, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit. But I kind of want to stick to the Europe thing for another minute. Um, one thing that struck me, and I don't know, I've never been to Belgrade, and I've never been to that part of Europe, but obviously I've been pretty close because Bucharest is real
Yeah.
near, probably like an hour flight, I think, from Belgrade if you want to hop on a plane, or maybe two or three. Um, One thing I noticed about Bucharest was, so it's funny because when I went to go there, my mom is like, remember, my mom hates Europe. She's a American file.
Yeah.
She's gonna hold on to California until the fentanyl heads living on her, on her street are gonna.
I mean, I respect it. Same. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
really,
she like,
really fun.
well, in her mind, she lives in 1960s California, even
And I
though,
live in 1990s fucking New York City.
right,
So yeah,
as soon as like last time I visited my mom, like, right across the street from her, middle class condo, there's like a CVS, and there's like a brick wall, like the back of the CVS. And there was a lady that was in midday on a Saturday, completely naked, yelling at the brick wall. And my daughter's like, "What is the lady doing?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it. She's just being a crazy person."
just being.
I'm like, "Oh, well, that's not how it used to be when I grew up here." But once again, I have selective memories because I grew up in the 90s where we had ghetto birds and drive-bys every other night.
Right.
But my mom goes, "Oh my God, you're going to Bucharest. That's like Eastern Europe. It's like dangerous. There's like gypsies or something. They're going to rob you or whatever. You got to be careful. There's a lot of crime out there." So I'm like, I'm going to go look up this crime statistics of Bucharest, right? So I looked it up, and like the crime statistics were like 2 murders like in a year, right? And I'm like, Mom, as we were having this conversation, 100 times the crime of Bucharest just happened in Chicago right now. Like literally, like 10,000 people got shot like overnight, And you never told me that when I went to live in Chicago. So it's interesting the perspective of Eastern Europe from a American, or even a American immigrant kind of mentality. But I was really shocked by Europe, or by Bucharest specifically, was how like it felt pretty safe, right?
Yeah.
And I had my daughter there. I had well, she was 5 at that time, but how kid friendly it was. All the parks we went to, you had the little playgrounds, and next to you had like a beer garden, and people were drinking beer and smoking cigarettes. And everywhere we went, like all the cafes with alcohol, everybody was drinking Aperol Spritz. That seemed to be like the drink of that summer, right? Like Aperol Spritz. I don't know if that's popular in the U.S. I've never seen it here.
Um,
I know it's a New York thing. I know New Yorkers drink it.
Yeah, it's a little big here, especially during the like spring summer seasons.
Right, but that was like a thing everywhere. It was Aperol was like the drink. Have you heard of it, Fisto?
I have not. No.
It's like an orange, like looking kind of booze, and I don't know.
Weren't they drinking tons of them in White Lotus season 2?
They were drinking tons of it in White Lotus because they were in Italy, right?
Yes.
And I believe it's an Italian like liqueur. and you mix it with champagne. It's something like that. It's pretty good. It comes in.
I'm not mad at it. I'll take it.
Yeah, it's actually really good. It's kind of girly. It's kind of femme, and it looks pretty gay, but that's awesome.
So you sure you haven't tried it?
Oh, pretty sure, yeah, 100%.
He's more of a Mai Tai kind of guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No,
like
it's
no,
I'm more of a Budweiser guy.
Yeah, there you go.
Or like Jameson or Bushmills or just like
Youngling.
Here's some Jack Daniels.
He's a PBR kind of guy. He's a straight up
PBR.
No, it is. No. PBR is it. Listen. It's been fun listening to you guys because as a contrast, this is gonna be funny, but like I'm glad I have the sense to just get out of your way and let you guys talk because it's like I'm thinking back to my own background and it's like all of my cultural experience and all of my cultural memory is just right here on this continent.
Yeah.
And that's just funny to me. Like I think about you guys talking about going back to Bucharest and I think about going back to Cleveland.
Right.
It's like it's just such a funny image because it's you guys are talking about these drinks and I'm thinking back to myself. Yeah, it's PBR in the punk club in some seedy bar in Cleveland where it's nestled between a couple of steel factories. You know what I mean? Like it's just a different vibe. It's fun it's been a lot of fun listening to you guys because it's so different from my own experience.
Right. I mean, PBR was the dollar beer drink in Los Angeles.
It was huge in 2013 Brooklyn. Don't knock a PBR.
It's still huge. What are you talking about? I don't want to hear it.
It was huge in Los Angeles County back, between like 2005 and mid 2015. Like, there used to be this bar I used to go to called Ferns, and they used to do dollar beer night, and it was all PBR, and they used to give you a tall can for $1 in a paper bag, and it was awesome.
And then they give you like a shot of whiskey, like the bottom bottom drawer whiskey.
I can't drink it now. I'd probably throw it up just smelling it. But I pounded PBR like it was nobody's business, right? But one thing I
drank Old English. Let's fucking take it there.
Old Mad Dog or Cobra Gold. I remember Mickey's. Do you remember that Mickey's? What you like opened the fucking thing and there was like a puzzle. Do you remember that shit?
Is that like a prize at the bottom of the fucking?
No, it was Mickey's was in these little fucking little green grenade looking bottles, right? And it had like it was like a Mickey wide mouth, right? It was this cheap ass gross beer. And you open the twist top of the bottle and there was like a puzzle. Like it was like a
Snapple Facts kind of thing?
Yeah, it was exactly like the Snapple Facts thing, right? But it usually had like like a bee plus like a hammer time or some shit. It was always like a visual puzzle. And it was, I don't know how you're supposed to figure out when you
Why would I want to do a puzzle before I'm trying to get $2 beer? Like,
I don't fucking know. I don't understand why people like to play the one thing I hate, and this is an East Coaster thing over a West Coaster thing, is I've noticed that East Coasters and Midwesterners like to play games when they're drinking, like bags and all that shit. I'm like,
my God, my cousins in New Jersey will not quit with that shit. Oh, they're all obsessed.
I have never even heard of bags until I moved to Chicago. And because in Los Angeles, when I went drinking, I went to go drink. I just wanted to drink.
That was the activity. Yeah. This is it.
I don't want to fucking play games. I don't even like playing pool when I'm drinking. Like, that's just too much thinking when I'm trying to get fucked up, Yeah. Like, and I remember like one of my best friends, she moved to Chicago, and I was walking around in her neighborhood in Lincoln Park. And they were doing like some street like local neighborhood party or whatever, and there's all these assholes throwing bags at shit. And I'm like, what the fuck are you guys? What is this nonsense?
Cornhole? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it was cornhole, right? And she's like, oh, it's cornhole. She's like, these Midwesterners like to play cornhole a lot. And I was like, this is kind of cool and stuff. They have
tournaments here. Like one of my cousins is like hardcore into this shit on the weekends.
Right. It's like
there must be some kind of thing going on where I was from because like cornhole I didn't run into until I went to college, like down.
I think is it relatively new because this is like a new 2-3 year thing for me.
Is it? No, it's been around. It's been around.
No, this was in Chicago when I was there in 2008. So
shit.
Yeah, and now it's that game thing has polluted California too. So you see that in California a lot too now.
They have bars that are like set around having like the games. I'm like, why can't we just have a bar that's a bar? Like,
right. I just want to drink and smoke cigarettes and talk to people, you know? Yeah. Like I don't want to freaking play a game.
Yeah, if we had games at the bar, it was the Browns game.
Yeah, I don't even want to watch stuff at the bars. Yeah, I don't even like doing that. I just want to watch beer go down my throat, and like talk to people. But like the worst fucking game of all time, in my opinion, is the stupid cup thing where you throw the ball into the cup.
Fucking beer pong?
Beer pong. I hate beer pong because it takes for fucking ever, right? And
it's all college stuff, yeah.
Look. So, my time in the Navy, traveling around the world, I was always stuck with dudes that like to play beer pong. And a few years ago, I was in Guam, right? I was stuck in Guam, and I went to this bar with like some younger dudes. And these two girls, and they're attractive girls, but I'm married at that time, I'm dad, so I'm just gonna hang out, wingman for my younger friends, right? And these two girls are like, hey, do you guys want to play beer pong? And I'm like, yeah, no, but sure, I'll play, right? And this fucking game took forever, man. Like, I'm like, fuck, damn it, dude.
Right,
I just
want the monopoly of drinking games.
Yeah, I'm like, god damn,
the monopoly of drinking. Oh
I just wanted to drink and smoke cigarettes. I don't want to fucking sit here and throw balls into cups and dip. And motherfuckers like have a technique and shit, and they do this ball dip thing, and I'm just like I can't remember rules when I'm drinking, man. Like, what is wrong with you people? Like, just drink, But yeah, I have a hatred for anything like, or you're at a party, like a hangout, and somebody pulls out Cards Against Humanity. I just want to genocide those people.
Fuck off.
All right. You're Eastern European coming out there, guy.
I'm like,
settle down.
Like, I don't want to fucking play a goddamn card game at a party, dude. Like,
this is where I get like really Larry David about certain things. I'm like, don't invite me to a dinner party and then have like fucking Cards Against Humanity. Like, wow, like, are we gonna sit and talk like normal fucking?
Yeah, it's like, do you guys play like Dungeons and Dragons too while we're at it? Man, fuck you, man. Like, it's just for people. Cards Against Humanity. My wife always jokes because she's like, she knows, it's fun to like hate on Cards Against Humanity now. I have been hating on Cards Against Humanity since like 2000 and something when shit first came out. I'm like,
no, man, we ever hang out, I'm pulling that deck out. I'm pulling that Cards Against out. I'm like, hey, man, you want to play?
Look, if you pull out a tarot deck and we're doing some black magic, then I'm down, right? But Cards Against Humanity, like, dude, the only thing Cards Against Humanity...
tarot deck, but it's actually Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah, the only thing I would use at Cards Against Humanity at a party is to cut a line, okay? Use the side of the card.
Other than that... use my old medical, like, my fucking health insurance card.
Right. But, so... Back to Europe real quick. One thing I noticed in Europe was that like all the restaurants and bars and they didn't really have bars because they don't have bars like in the US where like it's just like 21 over and stuff. They're actually like all ages. You can just go and drink. Yeah. Everybody's there. And I'm sitting here like chain smoking European cigarettes, drinking my Aperol or Ursus beer, which means bear. It's pretty cool. And I'm sitting there like, eating my street food, bar food in Romania with my 5-year-old hanging out and shit, and she's like criticizing me for smoking. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay there, Juniper, you're so special, you tell me about Dare stuff too. Anyways, but there's kids everywhere, right? Just hanging out, and all the parents and kids are just drinking beer and smoking and having a good time, and everybody's friends, and it's safe, and there's no crackheads and no fentanyl and no needles everywhere. But one thing I noticed, so one night we went to, my uncle set up a party, kind of like a dinner for me and my brother and my wife and stuff, and my cousins came and their friends, their like college friends came also. And there was just a bunch of people, right? But like all Europeans, this dinner started like at 11 p.m., right? I don't know what it is about Europeans, but they like to eat dinner like at 11, So we're at this nice restaurant outside on the patio, just chain smoking. There's like 10 bottles of Patron because I don't know. And my uncle's big on drinking Patron with oranges instead of lemons. Like, when he does a shot, and actually that works really well.
That must be Romanian because that's not.
Yeah, that's weird for California, but like I tried it, I'm like, oh, okay, I like it. I can see why it like became a thing, right? But either way, there's all these people, and my kid's running around with her two cousins, and my cousin's kids are hilarious because my cousin lives in London, and they fly back and forth between the two countries, and they have British accents, which is hilarious because they speak English. Like, they sound like fucking Harry Potter, and then they're like, oh,
like little Peppa Pigs.
Yeah, they all sound like little Peppa Pigs. Oh, the blueberries taste like blueberries. Or
going
whatever.
On holiday, mommy.
Yeah, but then they also speak Romanian, which is hilarious. So my daughter obviously speaks American to them, and they were all playing, and there was a bunch of other kids, and it was just a fucking shit show. Like meat everywhere, booze everywhere, cigarettes, smoking everything, and it's like 1 a.m, and the kids are just running wild everywhere, right?
Yeah,
And
they're
we
amped
got
up. They're on like their eighth win already.
right, we got a table of like my brother sitting there passed out about he's like 7 balls of Patron in and stuff, and it was a bad night, right? And I look at the waiter, right, the head waiter that comes around and he's bringing us all this stuff and we're always changing the order and ordering more shit. And I'm like, hey man, I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry about my kids running. I felt like guilty. I felt my Americanness came through, right? I'm sorry, man. And the guy stops and he looks at me like I'm a fucking retard, right? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, and this is in Romanian, not in English, right? But he goes, oh, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, my kid's running around, man. I'm sorry, dude. I don't want to be rude. I don't want to. They're like, we like that. Like, that's how it's supposed to be, like a family place.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, that would never fucking happen in like,
absolutely the hell not. You
right?
Had babysitters that night.
Yeah. Right. And I thought it was so awesome.
It's Chuck E. Cheese.
Right. And that's one thing. And I know it's not just Romania. I know it's a majority of Europe, but like they involve all generations together. And it was so amazing because my grandmother was there, who is, my kid's great grandmother, right? And she's 90 and super spry, and she's an intellectual. She's an architect, and then my uncle's mother-in-law, who's like, I don't know, 100 years old or something, was there, and then my uncle and my aunt, and then their kids, my cousins, who are like, one of them is a little bit younger than me, so she's in her mid 30s, and then the other one's in her late 20s, and all these kids and friends and stuff. And it was so amazing to just be there and like not feel guilty. And in the US, you feel guilty taking your kid. Not so much in South Carolina, but in Los Angeles, it felt like everywhere you take your kid, there's nothing kid friendly. Like your kid is like a shitty accessory. It's like your dog that you have to put away in your kennel when you go anywhere because you have some like asshole like Karen like look down her nose at you if you bring your kid anywhere, And it's so, I don't know, it's so much, I don't know. I'm sure that it was the same in Belgrade, and it's something that Americans have a hard time with, like they're just, this separation between kids and adults is pretty shitty in my opinion, But yeah, that was my rant about kids in Europe. Have you read anything new? Anything cool, like a contemporary that you like?
Oh shit, contemporary. Okay, the newest in terms of being released things that I just finished last month. A Wolf at the Table, which is, I don't know if it's his like third book, but Augustin Burroughs. I think he did Running with Scissors, and then there was another one after that. So it's in that memoir genre. And it's told through, I think he writes it through the eyes of him as like a child, because he's a young boy, and it's mostly about his father and his relationship with his sociopathic father. And it spans from him being like 3 to say age 12 or so. And it's interesting to read about a person's life through the eyes of a child, which I think made it a lot more heartbreaking for me, because it's often that when I do read stories like this, that they're being told from an adult's perspective. Like when I write them, I've never considered writing from the perspective of, say, an 8-year-old. And it's that kind of language, that kind of emotion that it evokes. It was a tough read in the sense that, it was pretty harrowing, some of the material. And like I said, I don't have children, but obviously I have nieces, and to think of, children like having their innocence and their childhood taken away from them, it's something that like weighs pretty heavily on me.
Right.
So, yeah,
I can imagine.
It was a tough read. Important, but it was a tough read for me.
Right. Have you read your fellow New Yorker Honor Levy's new book or whatever?
I have not.
That everybody's been talking about?
Which, I mean, I know like the it girl right now is, what's her name? Sally Rooney, that Irish woman.
Hasn't she been the it girl in New York for a while when it comes to...
She has been, but I think her new book was just released a week or two ago. So she's been like big over the headlines. So yeah. I gotta tell you, I do not, and I get shit for this all the fucking time, from my boyfriend especially, is I do not really read read as much contemporary work as I should. It's something that I'm trying to actively do more of. I'm literally staring at like my idea of contemporary reading is like 1960s. Like right after I finish what are we reading next in October? Fucking Stephen King. So that's contemporary for me because I'm gonna go through Misery, and then I'm gonna follow up on with some Richard Yates, which is what, like 1940s, 50s.
Right.
So that's,
I'm
to
kind
me,
of the
that's
same way.
contemporary. I really don't dabble in a lot of like 2000s writing.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I try because I try to read stuff, and because I kind of want to like be part of the conversation or
Right. And
something,
it
you
also,
know?
as a writer now, I need to know what writing looks like now,
Right.
like,
Right. And I think the most I did read Honor Levy's book, and yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that.
okay.
And
Well, I can cross that off my list then.
I'm
So.
gonna leave it at
I
that.
mean, look, she's actually okay, so she's a good writer. I just wish she wrote a book, right? She didn't write a book. Her
What would you call it?
she basically just, published her like live journal posts, and
Right.
it reads like, my 19-year-old girlfriend's live journal post from like
Which
2002.
Word
has its
vomit.
place, but
Word
not
vomit.
as a book. I agree with
Yeah,
you.
it just didn't feel like there was no characters. There was no, it was just, live journal posts, and it's cool and all, but there was nothing there. Maybe because I'm 40, and I didn't grow up rich, and you know, she's writing about being 22 and hanging out with a bunch of kids in like Europe and stuff, and I'm like, bitch, I couldn't even afford to fucking beer.
Right.
I used to pay with change, like, change. I crawled out of like underneath people's couches for my dollar
And
PBR,
you know what? In that same vein, that's why I never got into Girls when it was a big thing, however many years ago in New York. Like everyone expects like Brooklyn Me to be like,
Right,
"Oh my God, you must have really loved Girls." I'm like, I fucking hated that show. There was not one relatable character for me as an actual poor New Yorker.
right,
Like I'm gonna empathize with this fucking rich chick whose only struggle is writing down one fucking essay. Like you really can't write one fucking book with all the time and money in your on your at your disposal.
right.
So
And there's a thing. I mean, and now it's a stereotype, and it's one that like I guess I really kind of like try to avoid it. Where, when I see a New Yorker novel by a woman, right? And this is why I like you actually, because you're a New Yorker and you're a woman, but you're not writing about your trust fund trips to Europe, writing the cock carousel of professors or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and that seems to be like every single one of those novels, right? It's like,
yeah.
oh, I'm so rich and I'm going to like blah 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 college in like New Hampshire or some shit like that, and my professor who I'm sleeping with opened my eyes to culture, but he's a jerk, and now I'm sad, and I'm still rich. You know?
Yeah.
And like I mean I just don't I mean I guess I grew up like this, punk rock kind of crappy Southern Californian bum, and I just
And
don't.
at least when I was growing up, there were tons of punk rock, like crappy, artists in New York too. It's just, and this can lead into a whole other fucking conversation, but yeah.
Fisto,
Did you
did you
see it?
grow up? Did you
Yeah.
grow up a punk rocker in Cleveland?
I grew up a nerd. I was straight up nerd boy.
You were a nerd.
I mean,
And
maybe
so
like
when? Because I feel like you became cool, like
oh
at
yeah,
some point.
I got cool late in life. Now growing up, it was nerd, but I was punk adjacent. A lot of my friends were punks,
Mm.
so like a lot of that kind of rubbed off on me. So I'd be at like I'd be at the CD bars, going to the punk shows, but I'm not drinking. Like it's that kind of thing.
You weren't drinking with a straight
How was
edge
that?
or
No,
something?
dude, I was a good
How would you
Christian
go
kid
through
for a
that
long time.
sober? Christ.
Oh my God.
Exactly, Christ. That's
You're
exactly
like
right. I
God's
know.
strongest soldier to do
Yeah,
to
I was, guys. I didn't, I was a clean, good, well-behaved kid, right up until my first divorce, and then I threw all that out the fucking window. So, no.
Well,
But anyway, up
I
until that point, I was a good kid.
I'm a nerd now. I used to be cool, and now I've got a
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, I feel like people always expect me to be a lot more cool than I am, and I
Yeah,
think on some level there's a lot of cool things that I still like to dabble in, but I'm fucking tired, you guys. Like I
yeah.
spent all day at the museum yesterday, like trying to be like fucking, Upper East Side, you know, Carrie Bradshaw, and I'm exhausted today. Like it's gonna be a long fucking time until I'm cool again. So
Yeah, I'm never going to be cool again. I am wearing a Cure shirt, and I put on my Doc Martens so I can go down to Savannah and hang out with the art hose outside of SCAD, so I can blend in. I don't want to look like I'm a Republican or anything like that, But there's nothing cool. I mean, I drive a Toyota Corolla.
Yeah.
Like it just, And then when I listen to music, my daughter always makes fun of me because she's like, "Dad, I don't want to drive with you because all you listen to is sad music." And I'm like, "Oh, listen to sad music. Fuck you." Like, I'm sorry I didn't put on Chingy or whatever for you.
Right. Put on Dua Lipa, you fucking loser.
Oh, guys, one of my favorite things, you guys will appreciate this, especially having the LA thing going on. But one of my favorite things is on Fridays, I let the kids pick the music, right?
Oh God, you're
that we got in class while
for that.
Yeah. So they're naming all kinds of shit, and I'm just like, YouTube rap artist of the month or whatever the hell it is they got going on. And then I bring up something like NWA and everybody's like, "What? I've never heard of that." I'm like, you motherfuckers.
Oh, rap is horrible right now.
Very bad.
Oh yeah, I mean,
very bad.
Like old school classic hip hop. It's like, come on, guys, you don't know this stuff, and you're.
I was never like a rap hip hop guy. I just didn't really dig it. I was more into like, Joy Division. But
yeah, there you go.
Growing up in Long Beach, like West Coast rap, Tupac, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg were all there. And, it was ambiguous in my cultural milieu, right? And so like when I was in California, when I was in Long Beach, I never listened to rap. But if I'm like in freaking, I don't know, Alabama somewhere visiting, and Snoop Dogg or of course our national anthem of California Love by Tupac comes on. I mean that's where every Californian just like pops out.
I heard a lot of Biggie when I was in Venice, especially. I was quite shocked.
Right, and then you don't even like Biggie, but as soon as Biggie comes on, your New Yorker comes out.
You know it, yeah. You're like, yeah, that's right.
That's how it was when I was in Chicago. We went in a bar or club or whatever, and then like California Love comes on, or like some Sublime, and we're like, "Yeah, Long Beach in the house," and then fuck you, Lana Del Rey. You know what really makes me funny because Lana Del Rey. I'm gonna go on Lana Del Rey.
She's not from California, we don't know this.
Yeah, right? I'm gonna go on. I love Lana Del Rey.
So do I. That's my girl.
Louisiana alligator, freaking humping coke whore. I love you, right? But here's the thing, right? So Lana Del Rey is like, "There's a tunnel underneath Ocean Boulevard." No, bitch, I know there's a tunnel underneath Ocean Boulevard because I'm from Long Beach, all right? I didn't move there yesterday, all right? Everybody from Long Beach knows that there's a tunnel underneath Ocean Boulevard, okay? And it's not really a tunnel, it sucks, right? And then she's out there wearing like her chola outfit, like she's like from fucking, northern Mexico, and hanging out by the San Pedro docks in that,
calling herself Lanita?
Yeah, in that freaking video for, for the Sublime cover, right? And I'm just like, you look like every girl I dated that used to hang out at Target, in like Long Beach, like when I was in high school. And it's funny because it's like, I feel like you're culturally appropriating my style there, Lana. Go back to New York, man.
I do have one beef with her. She has this track on Ultraviolence, Brooklyn Baby. And I would like to know when Lana Del Rey was ever a Brooklyn Baby.
Right.
Tell me, Lana.
Right, Lana, get the fuck out of Long Beach, okay?
Guys, I got this image in my head of this podcast right now where it's like you guys are talking about the West Coast and the East Coast, the West Coast and the East Coast, and I'm picturing like this war game sort of like missile fire going back and forth, and then I'm just this little Ohio kid underneath it all going, "Please don't fucking hit me."
You're gonna get the radiation. You're gonna get the cultural radiation from us, okay?
I'm gonna hide on my farm and just drink my PBR and just like whatever the fuck.
You guys gave us Midwest emo, and I'm not forgiving you for it.
Hey, we gave you Trent Reznor, okay?
You did.
Come on,
you did.
We did. That's our one. And
wasn't Marilyn Manson from Florida?
No, he's from Florida.
Yeah, he's dude. Robert Patrick, the dude he used to play in Nine Inch Nails. He graduated from my fucking high school.
That's fucking wild.
So there you go.
Yeah,
I knew one of the guys that used to play with him back in high school. Like, how funny is that?
That's wild.
That's as close as I get to fame.
Well,
right there.
Like anyways,
3 times removed.
Yeah, that's my beef with Lana, man. Okay, like.
I think that's all of our beef with Lana, but I forgive her still.
No, I do
I'm just
too.
like, what's a Lana? I'm so confused.
Hey, this podcast, and we've talked about this in the past. This podcast is a
I thought we were going to talk about Tolstoy.
Yeah, this is a Lana Del Rey respecter podcast. We do not talk shit about Lana Del Rey or Sydney Sweeney, who I also like. And
I am a Lana Del Rey apologist till the day one of us dies. So
yeah, I have all her stuff on vinyl because I am so hip and cool like that. All right. And as much as she's a poser, singing about the West Coast and shit, you know, I accept her.
She does it really fucking well, though. Like, you just got to give her that.
And she's just, everything about her just screams Target, and I love that. I don't know why. That's just always the vibe I got from her. Like,
I'm just curious. Does your wife like Lana at all?
My wife loves Lana.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Right. I do enjoy some T-Swift every now and then. Yeah. Realistically, the best of them is Billie Eilish. That's my opinion.
I agree. I think Billie is like actually, and the fact that they make it in their own fucking like little bedroom studio with her brother is like beyond wild to me.
It's kind of creepy too, but you know.
I mean, to be that, I think all artists on that level kind of gets creepy.
Yeah. Like Billie Eilish is a little bit creepy and weird, and like you're definitely homeschooled, and like it's just weird, you know.
People forget how young she was when that first album dropped.
Yeah, no, I mean she was like 17 or something, right?
Yeah.
No, but I love the new album. I think I thought it was great. I even wrote about it on Alexander's
site. Your review,
and everybody's like, "Oh, you're degenerate." I'm like, "Shut up, fuck up." You know, listen, that's not even degenerate. I'm start writing reviews about, you know, freaking Christian Death and Roz Williams and stuff like that.
So, do you remember a while when I think earlier in the podcast you mentioned that like T-Swift girlies were like, you know, they read Tolstoy and then Lana read Dostoevsky. A while back, I had read some essay, and I didn't know, but apparently Dostoevsky was like always jealous of Tolstoy and the fact that like he was raised under better like economic and lifestyle circumstances, so he was able to like focus on his writing more. And
yeah, I mean that would make sense, right?
Yeah, because some of the criticism, you know, when people bring up this like Tolstoy versus Dostoevsky thing is, well, they said that Tolstoy was, you know, like a more cohesive writer with better character development and yada, yada, yada. And I can kind of relate to like the Dostoevskys of the world. And it's like, yeah, some of us are like in fucking prison.
Right.
Like,
the dude had epilepsy, okay? He was like Ian fucking Curtis, all right? You know, he had epilepsy. He was a hardcore addicted gambler. You know, they sent his ass to the gulag.
They literally sent him to the gulag.
Right, where all he had was like one page of the New Testament that he read over and over or something like that. And then he writes the greatest novels of all time. All right. So, yeah, I mean, Dostoevsky's the superior guy. I mean, Tolstoy is cool, but then he did the weird hippie thing where he's like, oh, I'm going to go live in the train station and die or whatever, you know? And it was all.
Yeah, but he did that by choice.
Yeah, he did that by choice. Dostoevsky, man, he couldn't help it. He had to gamble, you know? Yeah. He just had to. And he had epilepsy. And then the only reason we even know he exists is because his last wife, girlfriend or whatever, who was a secretary, kept all his stuff and, you know, kept it published, right? So I don't know. I just feel more connected with Dostoevsky. Tolstoy.
I think it's also, like we spoke about, this goes back to just us as human beings kind of being connected to the darker aspects of the human psyche, which, you know, we spoke about music and whatnot, and this kind of all will go and penetrate into the type of literature that we're drawn to read. Like, I'm not going to argue and say Tolstoy may or may not be a better writer. That could very well be true. I'm not a classically trained writer. I don't have a degree in it. But for me, what resonates is a lot of the themes that I think Dostoevsky does better. It's kind of like that Bukowski argument. Like obviously he's not going to be one of the greatest like classical writers of our time, but his style of speaking and the tone with which he conveys his message, that kind of unrefined, everyday gruesomeness of life, that's what resonates with me. So
that's right, Bukowski. I can read Bukowski all day, every day. I mean,
me too. And I could read that shit and I'll finish it in a day because I get so absorbed in it.
I am not particularly a fan of poetry. I don't really care much for poetry. I don't really have a talent for writing it. I think I've dabbled in the dark arts of poetry every now and then. I'm just not very good at it. But I mean, Bukowski, I can read Bukowski all day, every day, you know, because he talks about getting drunk in bars and sleeping with ugly women because they bought him booze, and that's basically, that's I've been there, and like
Yeah.
I understand that. I understand that, like, I don't give a fuck. I'm just gonna get drunk and die, and that resonates to a certain degree, But yeah, I mean, eh, I love Lana Del Rey. Just go back to just joking. But let's talk about Los Angeles, okay? One of
Go
the
back
coolest
to
things
Lana.
about our conversations is that recently you had the pleasure, displeasure, or
A
fortune
fucking pleasure, the honor.
to go
I
to
love
my hometown
I
of
sure
Los
did.
Angeles, all right? And it's very interesting because, okay, I'm gonna have to add a caveat real quick for all the listeners here. So I grew up in Los Angeles. Well, I actually grew up in Long Beach, California. But if you don't know, Long Beach is basically part of Los Angeles. It takes like 15 minutes on the 710 to the 101. Well, 710 to the 5 to the 101 or the 605, and you're in Hollywood in like 20 minutes on a chill day or 7 hours on a traffic day. But I grew up there. I grew up in Los Angeles County, Orange County, that whole area. I lived in San Diego. So I'm a Southern California. I've lived in every single Southern California coastal county, right? So the most northernmost Southern California county is actually Ventura County, which Lana Del Rey sings about, also. You got Ventura, then you have Los Angeles County, then you have Orange County, and then finally you have San Diego County, and then you have Mexico, right? So I've lived in every single one of those on the coast, right? And I've loved every one of them. Orange County is actually my favorite of all of them because it's
The
nicest.
OC.
Yeah,
I
the
respect
OC,
it.
but when I was young, I used to hate on the OC because, you don't go south of the Orange Curtain. That's where Republicans live. It's Ronald Reagan County, right? I mean, fuck, their airport is called John Wayne Airport, and it's super, super conservative, but it's not really. Now it's just like Chinese immigrants and tech people living everywhere. If you ever heard of the college UCI, ever heard of that college?
No, I don't think
UCI
so.
is like the big Orange County college, and we called it the University of Chinese Immigrants. It's kind of a very techie college. Philip K. Dick went there, which is kind of funny, but whatever. But anyways, I've always hated New Yorkers. I don't know why. I'm sorry. I've
I
met a lot
mean,
of I've met a lot of New
you're
Yorkers.
in good company there. We're
Yeah, and you know what? Los Angelinos or whatever the fuck we're called, right? We're assholes too, but Los Angeles people, at least the natives, right? The problem with LA is that a lot of people that live in LA aren't from fucking LA, right? But
yeah.
the locals, the trad Los Angelino people, they tend to be real laid back and chill and more, just kind of chill people. New Yorkers always came off, at least the ones that came to the West Coast, came off as uppity fucks all the time,
We are uppity fucks. I'm not gonna fucking sit here and negate that. We're
Yeah,
super uppity fucks.
like, I used to have this allergy towards anything New York, like Woody Allen. I hate Woody Allen. I don't know why. It just irritates me. He's too neurotic. He's just like, I am like the dude, from the Big Lebowski. That's the Los Angeles vibe that
That's
I
the Los
enjoy.
Angeles vibe, yeah.
Right. Just I'm like the dude, I'm just chilling, just trying to drink my drink, You get some uppity Woody Allen fuck coming over with their ugly shoes, talking about fucking, "Oh, I'm here to fucking do some business," and just, I hate you, I mean, that's how I used to look at New Yorkers, right? Then I've met some New Yorkers outside of New York and I like them. And, obviously, everybody's cool and all. And some of my friends right now are actually New Yorkers, and I'm kind of big fan of them. But I've always felt that rivalry. You guys had good TV shows in the '90s. All that Friends stuff, and we had movies, so it was always
Yeah.
back and forth, right? You guys had Broadway, and we had Hollywood, so it was always a cool thing. Um, our fiction was one thing, and then East Coast fiction, dominated, the international culture when it comes to publishing, for example. So
Yeah,
I
it does.
always thought that, and so. What do you think about the two cities? Tell me about your trip. What'd you like about it? Where'd you go?
So, I mean, honestly, I would be hard pressed to tell you anything that I didn't like about my trip. So I was there for about 8 days. I was in Venice, Santa Monica, and then the last leg was in Hollywood. Hollywood would have, ranked least on that list, but because to me it was a little Times Squarey, and I think coming from New York, I always tell people when they ask me like, "Would you ever leave New York?" I was like, "Sure," but it would have to be not for another like major city because
Right.
I don't think if I want a city, I'm in the one that I'm meant to be in, which is why I probably enjoyed being in Santa Monica and in Venice so fucking much. Um, that like Big Lebowski vibe that you're talking about, that's exactly what it was like every single day when I was there, just like waking up naturally and just grabbing my coffee and walking from Venice to Santa Monica and back, with no real plans, just vibes, and everybody just seemed so chill. The pace that they were walking in, like how they spoke, everything just seemed like it was a lot more relaxed.
You walked in Los Angeles? It's against the
Did
rules.
I? I
We don't
I
walk.
if I could like if I had the screenshot and I could share my screen of like the fucking like the like steps tracker.
Hmm.
Insanity. I must be the only person who's ever gone to LA and walked more than she does in New York City.
That's
There was one
fun.
day where did like 33,000 steps because I hiked so fucking much. So,
Southern California has like the best hikes, by the way. That's
yeah.
one of the things
So
I do miss.
so that's what I was gonna lead up to. There's just so much nature there, from the mountains to the desert to the fucking beach, which obviously everyone knows I'm a beach bum at heart. I appreciated every single part of it. I mean, the weather is unbeatable. And honestly, to me, like to live amongst that kind of climate all the time, all year round, is just such a privilege. Coming from somebody who gets 3 to 4 months of like nice weather and the rest of it is
Cold.
it's cold and dark, one or the other, or both, if we're lucky. So that's what really resonated to me. It's just like the relaxed nature, and then the climate and just being like having nature so accessible is something that does not happen in New York. Like going to the beach or going on a hike is like a 1 to 2 to 3 hour like adventure. Like you have to
Right.
literally do it. Like there's no like today I'm just gonna wing it and like spend the day like hiking this trail. Like that takes planning, preparation, it takes travel. Um, so if
Yeah.
yeah, I loved all of that. In terms of like other smaller things, like I didn't meet anybody that wasn't a pleasure to be around in LA. I mean, everybody seems super fucking nice. Maybe I wasn't there long enough for like all the, stereotypical like stuff to come out, but
Yeah. I don't, I always disagreed that people in LA were jerks. I actually don't think
yeah,
so
I
at
didn't
all.
find one jerk. Like
Yeah.
I was probably the jerk.
Yeah, I don't feel like that. I never felt like that at all. Especially like
Yeah.
to the locals. Most of the assholes I've ever met in LA tended to be not from Los Angeles or the like,
Yeah.
like
And I feel
Hollywood.
that way about New Yorkers too. I feel like some of the most asshole people here are the ones that like are not from New York.
Yeah, but the people that have never been to California, for California, for all its like political ills and all the problems, and there's a shit ton of them, right?
Right.
I'm not even going to
Same here,
deny
yeah.
that. California is environmentally one of the most beautiful places on the planet.
Literally the most beautiful
Right.
place. Like,
There is nothing like better than, you go surfing in the morning or you just go to the beach and you look west and you see you see Catalina Island and Channel Islands, which I'm sure you've seen them when you were there, right? Like the islands
mhm.
off the coast, right? Which by the way, if you're ever there in the future, go to Catalina Island. It's a gorgeous place, and that's where I proposed to my wife back in the day. But you see these islands and fucking dolphins jumping and whales and shit, and then oil rigs, of course. The oil rigs are everywhere. And then you turn around, you look east, and you see just the snow-capped Sierras out in the
Yeah.
distance, and you can literally surf in the morning in San Diego and hop in your car and go to Big Bear, and you get there at noon, and you can freaking snowboard in the afternoon. All right. And it's the coolest thing. And that is one thing I very much miss from living in California, because my friend Chris and I, who was on the podcast a few episodes ago, every Sunday we would meet up at 6 a.m. in the morning at Starbucks, and we would go into the mountains above Santa Barbara in Santa Barbara County, and we would just hike for hours, and just there's waterfalls and just this beautiful forest. And then we'd be back in like, Ventura the next, in a
Yeah.
few hours. And you get these like just, this crazy contrast. Unfortunately, I am convinced that Los Angeles, it was built on top of a sleeping demon, and the evil slowly seeps out of it and destroys everything slowly at a time. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of our own political shit going on in New York. I mean, when don't we? But like it was funny when you we picked the state, and now in light of our, useless mayor's indictment, it's just like I don't think we've ever in the history of New York that I've been alive have had a great mayor. They just seem to get categorically worse. With this one taking the cake, like for sure. And of all places, you sold us out for Turkey, like to Turkey, like.
Jeez. Yeah,
I
I don't know
know.
much. I think I asked you. I was like, "Who the fuck is this dude?" And
Oh
then
yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah. I think Fisto even was like, I don't really know too much about it, just kind of what he overheard in the news, but there's a lot of serious allegations, and we've been like one thing that New Yorkers all categorically agree on is that this guy is the absolute worst.
yeah.
So
That's what I think. That's what Alex said. You know, even though he's not a New Yorker, but he's very close to you guys. He's like New York adjacent almost. Um, that's interesting. And you know what's interesting, growing up in Los Angeles and probably also you in New York, is that our lifestyle, how we grew up, feels so it's hard to separate it from like other places like Ohio. I can't even imagine living in Ohio,
yeah,
to be honest. And I
yeah.
don't mean that in a bad way or at all, but I'm sure that Fisto can imagine living in New York and California because our lifestyle has so dominated and permeated American culture
Yeah,
so
yeah, American
much.
culture. Yeah.
Yeah, you think of a TV show like, you grew up watching Friends or How I Met
Sex in
Your
the City.
Mother, Sex and the City.
Fisto's wife is a huge Sex in the City fan, and I was like super excited to hear that.
Right. So it's like Americans lived through television in New York and in Los Angeles. And that's really, something that it's hard to explain how you feel about that, like our accents, people go, so you don't really have a New York accent, which is interesting. And
It comes out more, I think, when I'm drunk and or angry. You'll definitely hear it. Um, One of the things I love about like living here, sometimes I'm on the phone with a friend who is not in New York or not from New York, and walking down my neighborhood, you hear the most Brooklyn conversations like ever.
well, you guys
Uh,
walk in your neighborhood. That's weird, man. We don't walk
yeah,
in
that that
neighborhoods
was
in
that was what that
California.
was the only thing that did take me aback in Hollywood, since I was like doing a lot of walking.
Right.
I never bumped into fucking anybody.
Oh
So
no, no. You can grow up in Los Angeles and you can literally start zigzagging across the city for a month straight without stopping and not run into anybody you know.
yeah.
And it's just the weirdest thing that you can, you never like here in South Carolina, I run into people all the time. Over there, I never ran into anybody ever. It's just like a weird thing you don't do. You just don't, run into people. You don't talk to people at stores and stuff. We just didn't do
Which
that.
is funny because growing up, one of my other favorite New Yorkers, Larry David, who is now in LA, growing up on Curb Your Enthusiasm, he's always bumping into fucking everybody, begrudgingly so, right? And I was like, how does this happen for Larry? Because I see nobody walking the streets of like Santa Monica.
Right.
Like,
No, no, nobody walks there. It's empty. And it's like a weird emptiness. When I spent some time living in Tokyo, I came back for my brother's wedding, and I was shocked how empty Southern California felt compared to Tokyo. Tokyo and the whole metropolitan Tokyo area is very dense. It's a very dense city, and there's always cars all night. Like at 2 in the morning, you open your front door and you go around the corner, and there's like cars everywhere, and traffic and stuff at 2 in the morning. And you go to Los Angeles, and like after dark, it's just pitch black dark, and there's nobody on the street. And it's an interesting thing, which got worse during COVID. COVID
yeah,
really
for sure.
demolished all culture in Los Angeles, and in that area. Probably the same with New York.
Yeah, I mean, New York was already on a little bit of a decline, like like say after the 2010s
Right.
culturally, because that's when I think gentrification really took over, and a lot of the places like CBGBs, that were like cultural hubs, just financially could not, couldn't afford to even exist anymore, which is super sad. One thing that my friends and I always talk about is like, and I'm sure you can say the same for places in LA that you hung out in, like for us, like punk kids, we used to hang out in St. Mark's, in downtown like lower Manhattan, and that area is so completely different from what it was 20 years ago. Like none of the old venues exist, and none of the restaurants are there anymore. The clothing
Right.
shops, the boutiques, like they're all fucking Starbucks or some like Japanese like vending machine situation. so wild to see. And it kind of made like when you earlier spoke about like people giving the younger generation shit, I think we kind of give them a lot of leniency because they've got it pretty fucking rough, like growing up. And I would not want to be a 20-year-old.
Oh no, not at all. And yeah, you're right. So I grew up in Long Beach in my formative years of my 20s. I used to hang out on this area called 4th Street, and Long Beach people probably know this place. And it was kind of like the hipster. This is the hipster era, right? And it was like the flannel hipster kind of like kind of era with the flannel and the beanies and the black frame glasses. And it was in a part of Long Beach we used to call the ghetto because it was next to the ghetto, but it was like the gentrified gay neighborhood. Like it was like the line dividing the two, So it wasn't the full-blown gay neighborhood. It was in the full-blown ghetto. It was like the ghetto in between. And all the bars, all the bars there are gone. Like I think every single bar I used to hang out with I used to go to Red Room. It's gone. Ferns was this disgusting punk rock bar that smelled like vomit, and every girl that worked there was like some like suicide girl porn star. And
Suicide Girls even exist? Like,
I don't think so anymore. Do you know what Suicide Girls is, Fisto?
Is he still? I think he had to hop off for a bit.
Oh yeah, I don't think. I mean, if Suicide Girls was the thing.
Oh my God, I hit mute. I'm such a freaking noob.
I was about to say, where are you?
Do you know what Suicide Girls is?
I've been here the whole time. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that was the thing.
Did OnlyFans like put a final nail in their coffin?
I think probably, so. I think so. Yeah,
they all moved there.
I just remember for a while when I was going to like goth clubs in LA, like Perversion and stuff. Every girl you meet was like, "Oh, I'm a suicide girl," and I'm like, "You're just a porn star, but less paid." It's kind of gross.
Porn star with tits or with tats.
A goth, yeah, porn star with tats. Yeah.
Porn star with
tats.
Yeah, but like everything's closed. I mean, COVID destroyed every bar in San Diego. Right. Every great bar that I used to go to is gone. Like that area had a great like bar culture, and they're just gone. Everything's gone. Like there's nothing there anymore. And yeah, like these kids, people go, "Oh, these kids don't fuck or whatever." It's like, well, what are they gonna do? Where are they gonna go? Right?
Well, of course. There was a study I read a while back that this generation by far consumes far less alcohol than we did, which is an interesting.
Right. You can't smoke. You can't drink anywhere. You can't do anything. So of course you're going to sit online. You're going to sit online on TikTok and turn trans, because there's nothing else to do. There's no outlet. Like there's no, and it's interesting because I sometimes my wife scrolls through like Instagram and like YouTube, like shorts and all that garbage, right? And, what you see, and this is interesting. So when I was growing up, and I'm sure you guys can attest to this, you had the scenes, right? I remember being in high school and middle school, and you had the punk rockers, you had the punk rock crowd, and it's the guy with the mohawk and the girls that spend way too much time putting studs on their leather jacket and graffitiing like a anarchy and a cheesy Sid Vicious thing on there, and then you had the goths who like, spent like 6 hours in the morning, like, gluing their hair up and stuff or whatever. And
that's why I couldn't ever really be a full goth. I don't have that kind of commitment.
That was my thing too. I never had the urge to really.
Sorry.
Yeah, I did a mohawk thing for like a month, and I was like, "This is fucking work, man."
Man. The most I can do is like slather on a shit ton of eyeliner and wear fishnet. That's it.
Right. And back when I was in high school, and you had to do the goth thing. There was no skinny jeans for sale, guys. All right. This was the era of like American Eagle baggy jeans and like sweatshirts and stuff, which is now back. Right. So if you were like a dude that wanted to like, get your goth on, you had to wear your girlfriend's black stretch jeans. Okay. Like I had to. All right. Okay.
You were forced.
So I'm a new metal baby.
Yeah, you're like my wife. You have awful taste in music. You listen to fucking like Cold Chamber and fucking. I'm just joking.
You leave Korn out of this. You leave Jonathan Davis's name.
Yeah, my wife tortures me with her freaking Deftones and.
Oh my God.
Freaking Cold Chamber.
You mentioned that in some posts, and now I think you're completely wrong because she sounds cool as hell. So
she's like, "Oh, let's listen to fucking Stained or something like that," or
let's put on the best of Linkin Park.
Oh boy, go back to my hole and hide.
System of a Down or something here. Like, God damn, I'm like, no, listen to The Cure in this house.
But we listen to both. Why can't it be both?
I know. New metal. new metal. I mean, I love the fact that like Limp Bizkit is like somewhere there's
Oh,
a
I could write a whole fucking like thesis on Fred Durst and how awesome he is. I love me some Fred Durst.
somewhere there's a picture of me with a red New York Yankees hat, you know, that like
Backwards hat.
my friend Zach like fucking has that he took one time when I just wore it for like a day, and he'll never let me like live it up, you know. And I
Was
think
that
like
on purpose or like
you know,
coincidental?
I figured I wanted to wear a hat because everyone was wearing hats, so I got a red hat, and that was kind of cool. You know, I was like in middle school or something, I think, when that shit came out. You
Yeah,
know, so yeah, it was a
yeah.
rough month. I don't know what was going on with me that month. You know,
So
but
you
yeah,
weren't a Slipknot kid. That
no,
wasn't
I
you.
never really liked Slipknot. I never really got into Slipknot. Not, I never. I think the new metal era, I kind of missed it. And that time, that's when I really got into like 80s and
Well, you're
70s
you're a
stuff.
little bit older, so you would, I mean, yeah, it was, I mean, since I'm a tiny bit younger than you guys, so I feel like it was definitely more of like 5 years prior, like is when it really got
Well,
big.
so what? I graduated high school 2002, and that was at the kind of
That
height
was a
of
huge big year, yeah.
that was at the height
What's your
of the new metal
excuse,
thing
dude? Why are you listening to Joy Division? You should have been listening to like porn with us
because I was cool.
because you were depressed.
Yeah, I was very
And we
depressed.
were angry. We were depressed. We were angry
Yeah, they were
about
angry.
it.
I was just like, hey
We were angry.
man,
Maybe
I'm
that was the New Yorker. I think honestly, maybe it was like the East Coast in us that we were just gonna like scream about it. Um,
yeah,
but I think if I had to like, I was like a grunge baby. Like
me too.
honestly,
I like Pearl
I'm a
Jam.
fucking grunge kid. I'm
Alice in
grunge
Yeah,
Chains.
smart.
yeah.
That was
Yeah,
me. Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, like the whole era is what I like. You know, Nirvana. I
yeah.
liked, well, obviously Smashing Pumpkins we
Leave
talked
me
about.
alone with my Soundgarden, and I'll be gone for
Yeah,
6 days. So
Poe. I liked a little bit of metal, like Pantera and stuff
yeah,
too.
old. I mean, I'm huge into like young, earlier Metallica, Slayer, even.
I really liked the early 90s kind of stuff, like the proto grunge stuff like Concrete Blonde and
Mm,
I don't know, man. I just liked Doc Martens and flannel. That's kind of where I dwelled for a while.
that's
My
where you.
wife though, she's a little bit younger than me. She's like 4 years younger, I think.
Then she's about my age. Yeah.
Yeah, so she was, I mean, her era of music was that weird like rock and roll revival era, right? The hipster like emo era where like it was like Panic at the Disco and
Oh
The
man. See,
Strokes.
that's what
Uh
we call scene. We weren't like
yeah, Scene, right. My wife was a scenester. There's pictures of her with like
the side
the
bangs.
side bangs and the poofy hair over the eyes with like the red, dyed black with the highlights, and like it's like all big, like stuff like what was that band that sang TKO, that like lesbian band?
Yes, yes,
La
yes.
Tigre, La Tigre,
So
and
you
all,
know who I looked like in the early, you know Evanescence?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So my like style inspo was very like Amy Lee in early Evanescence. So it was like that kind of like, I guess what you would call like a mall goth,
Oh, did you
Okay.
ever own like a belt that was
Amazing.
like a seat belt buckle?
like a studded belt. Oh no, no, no. I did the studded belt. I'm sorry. I was too
I
cool for that shit.
I
I'm
had the
sorry.
studded. Yeah, I was way too cool for that. I had a
Studded.
white studded belt for a while
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
No, the
I did
seatbelt
not go the
buckle.
Avril Lavigne tie route. I was too cool for that shit
Yeah,
too.
maybe I think we're maybe too old for that, right? Like,
Yeah, a
um,
little bit.
but yeah, my wife was into that. She had cursive and stuff, and uh, fuck, she was
She
a
was
big.
into like My Chemical Romance.
Yeah, and she really likes Incubus. That was like her band that she went and saw a million times.
Yeah.
Uh,
See, mine is Bush, that which tells you that I'm just like an alt rock grunge
but
girly.
Bush
Like,
is Bush is older than you are. I mean, Bush
yes.
was when I was in middle school.
When
That was
I go
one.
to a Bush show, I'm definitely the youngest bitch
Yeah,
there.
that's more my era. That's actually like Bush came out when I was in middle school, so that was a little bit. I'm a little bit young for Bush, right? Like I think I think I was in sixth grade when Razor Blade Suitcase came out. God, I fucking
Yeah.
remember
Favorite
this shit. I
album.
can't remember.
I
I haven't
was I
listened
was
to it in
I,
20 years.
I was prime time for that. I graduated in 2000, so I'm the old man here.
Like 311, remember that era? And then there
Yeah.
was
Oh
that
God.
that
Yeah.
horrible era of like bowling shirts and like real big fish fucking nonsense. Remember that whole ska revival thing?
Yes, yes.
Did you guys in New York, did you guys have the whole
Yes,
rockabilly
we
thing?
did. We
Okay,
did.
because
I went to a lot of underground shows in high school. In the music scene was really big in the Bronx and obviously in greater New York. And we had a ton of local ska bands. Like,
really,
Yeah.
I thought I imagined that because the West Coast was big on that whole rockabilly, psychobilly thing with the tattoos. What was it, Tiger Army and the whole thing. And I was like into like Joy Division goth type era, like Joy Division, The Cure, the whole thing. My younger brother was all about that shit. He was all about rockabilly stuff. And this dude, was yoked up, tall guy, taller than me, big guns and shit. And he, I think his entire year, like 4 years in high school, he wore like a white shirt tucked into some jeans with the cuffs rolled up. And he had this huge pompadour that he would spend like fucking 2 hours doing it. He carried a comb around in his pocket. Like he's like fucking Kaniki from Greece.
I was just about to say, this is giving Greece as a kid.
Right. And he hung out with all the Mexicans, and all the Mexicans were into like rockabilly. So it was all like, they all wore those rockabilly dresses and they had tats and stuff. And they
I can't recall that being big in New York.
Oh, dude, it was just all the Mexicans loved that shit in California, and they wore like the Dickies jackets, and they had like embroidered shit on the back. I remember there was this gang called the Royal Cats that was in my high school.
I can't take a gang called the Royal Cats seriously.
Oh, there's rockabilly Mexicans, right? These guys all had these like crazy slick back, like huge pompadours, and we were like invited. We were like adjacent to them because my brother was a big rockabilly dude, so we all hang out with them, and all the punk shows were just rockabilly dudes, rockabilly chicks. And I don't know while you were in Los Angeles, did you see the Queen Mary at all?
No.
So the Queen Mary is that big ass haunted ship that was that's out there. Right?
Yeah, familiar with it.
And every year, I don't know if they still have it, but they had a huge rockabilly tattoo festival. It's called the Ink and Iron Festival. So like that rockabilly thing was well into, almost my 30s, where like you'd go there and there's like a million tattoo artists and everybody's got that what the hell's his name? That Sailor Jerry tattoos and stuff. And that scene, I dated girls like that were just covered in like old Sailor Jerry classic tattoos and that whole thing. We also had a really huge roller skating thing, like revival going on in California for a while. Like what's it called? What's that fucking thing called where they like punch each other while they're roller skating?
Like roller derby?
Roller derby, yeah. That was a huge roll. Did you guys have that in New York?
No, we're big into rollerblading, actually. Like aggressive inline blading is kind of big here. It was in the 90s and early 2000s, and it's kind of got another big push during COVID, since there wasn't much of shit all to do. So
right. Can't really do that in California.
I rollerblade. I wasn't a skateboarder, but I do fucking know how to rollerblade, really.
Right. Well, we had this huge, like, weird vintage roller skate thing that exploded. That was very adjacent to the rockabilly thing. So there was like a bunch of like Moxie girls and stuff, and they had like a bunch of like roller skating vintage kind of stores in the vintage kind of areas, and they would sell like these awesome like roller skates. But it tended to be a female thing, like a girl thing that was really popular. So you have all these tatted ass girls like fucking punching each other in the face, like going around in circles, which I thought was awesome. We also did a lot of cosmic bowling, which was fucking cool. Back in the day, where there was this one place that we used to always go to, and they would do bowling, and it was a night, and they basically have punk shows while bowling. So it was like
awesome.
You're bowling in the dark with like all these neon lights, and there's like a punk band playing, and it's like a punk club, And then of course, the Mexicans, right? The Mexicans there was tons of clubs that were like very like Mexican heavy, and Mexican girls in Southern California were into three different bands, right? They listened to Morrissey.
Oh my God, they love Morrissey.
I don't know what it is about Southern California Mexican girls. Morrissey makes them drop their panties. Right?
It's also on the East Coast. Like really? He is a fucking god to them.
Morrissey is a god to Mexican girls. Depeche Mode. All right.
Oh, okay. Well, that's one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, mine too. Morrissey, Depeche Mode, and what's the third one that like? No, it's another one of the vintagey goth ones. But yeah, Morrissey and Depeche Mode is like you got I used to go to this club called Club Rocket, and it was just I was the only white dude there all the time, but it was all goth Mexican girls, and like I think they just spun Morrissey, Smiths, and Depeche Mode. That's it. I don't think they listened to anything else. That was the entirety of the soundtrack,
I mean, that sounds like a good time to me.
It was a great time. That's where we always went. But like that was like the thing, that whole like vintage rockabilly thing mixed with Morrissey.
Here they're into like hardcore like thrash metal.
We had that too. And a lot of people like, I don't know if you've were unfortunately to read some of the Substack nonsense that people called me. What did they call me? What was that racist term they called me? Some kind of a taco eater or something like that.
What?
It's all Fisto's fault. Fisto's fault.
Look, these are barely literate people. I
See,
don't
I
even know what
try
they're
not
saying
to
half the
delve into
time.
like the like gruesome parts of Substack, because I'm here for just creatives and to read some good shit and
Right.
maybe
Well,
learn.
and that's me too. And then occasionally, like, you have some idiot fucking racist, hop on
Oh, I
there,
mean, yeah, I've seen it.
and
That thing that I wrote on LA, I got like a DM that called me like a cunt, and I was like, because I said I liked LA, you guys are weird.
yeah,
What?
it's like I'm sorry, dude. And you had all these fucking racists attacking Mexicans and shit. And like me, look, listen,
Yeah.
if everybody knows
Oh, it's
me,
because I made that post. It was because I made that post that was like, "Hey guys, I'm surrounded by Mexicans and they're kind of all right."
yeah, I grew up in a Mexican majority place, right? Because California
Yeah.
is a majority Hispanic
Yeah.
place, right?
Southern
And
California was part of Mexico.
Mexicans
Yeah.
were, if you live around in Southern California, Mexicans are basically white people,
Yeah.
and it's completely like ludicrous. Like you don't even think about it. Like
Yeah.
I look back and I dated a bunch of Mexican
How
girls.
many
Yeah,
times did you watch Blood In, Blood Out growing up? Because that
I,
was also a favorite of
I
ours.
never did. I never watched it actually.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. I must have missed it. All I watched growing up was the X-Files.
Oh my God, I'm huge into David Duchovny, so
Well,
yeah.
who's not? Right, but like, I mean, I just do not. The dude does not abide casual racism. I prefer my racism to be more intellectual, And you just leave, my ex-girlfriend Myra that we used to go punk rock clubbing with. Okay, leave her alone, man. And it's like. I don't know. It's nonsense. By all
It,
standards, by all lib standards, I'm a racist. And I'm a racist because I don't care about people's races. And that makes me a racist because I'm not interested in hearing your fucking sob story about anything. You know what I mean? But I just casual online racism just bores me. It's just dull.
it's so low level.
It is. It's so low level, right? Because
Yeah.
yeah, there's some shitty Mexicans, but for each single shitty Mexican, I've known a bunch of cool fucking dudes. Like, my friends that we used to go clubbing with at fucking listen to Depeche Mode and Morrissey and The Cure, right?
Yeah.
And, it's
Dude, you'll
like,
love this. You'll love this. I forgot to mention when you guys brought up Morrissey last weekend or last week, one of the Fridays. I'm like, hey, you want to pick the music kids?
Shut up. Somebody picked
Name's John.
Morrissey.
Oh, dead ass. 14 years old,
Mexican
Mexican
kid.
kid, Southern Florida. Hey, Morrissey. I was like, bro, boop, done. Without
He
hesitation.
has an older sister, or his mom is DTF
Probably.
with some
Probably.
Morrissey, all right? He
Probably.
has some
Oh.
He's one of
girl.
the smarter kids in my classes too.
Of
Like kid's
course.
bright as hell. Yeah, obviously he listened to Morrissey. Like
Dude,
it was hilarious.
I work with a kid that's 20 years old, and the best thing is he's a black dude from New Orleans, right? New Orleans, right?
No,
New
Nolens.
Orleans, right? And
Nolens.
he is a Morrissey fan. I made
That's
some
so
comment
wild.
about Morrissey one day, and I'm like, there's no fucking way any of these people would know who the fuck Morrissey is. And this guy's like, oh shit, Morrissey's the shit. And he like put on some Morrissey on his phone. I'm like, oh, damn. There you go. The casual racist would hate you. But me, I
Right.
respect people because they like Morrissey, man. I'm like, good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Los Angeles. I do. I love it and I hate it. I'm interested. Did you find Hollywood disappointing? One of the stereotypes
Um,
is everybody finds Hollywood exceptionally disappointing because it's gross and boring.
so to a degree, yeah. Like I said, I enjoyed Venice and Santa Monica a lot more. Hollywood was like very Times Square to me, like that that main strip or whatnot. The bars were cool. The people seemed nice. It was very touristy. I could take it or leave it.
There's all those
Uh,
bums everywhere dressed like
yeah, but
characters.
to me, that's the same when people come to New York and they stay in Midtown, and I'm like, that's not really New York to me. Um, I would obviously tell people to venture further out,
Right.
but I get it. So yeah, like I said, for me, Hollywood, I could take it or leave it. Would I go again? Sure. Would I miss it if I didn't? Probably not really. I couldn't get enough of like Santa Monica, Malibu, Venice. Like I will take those over Brooklyn.
Right.
Well,
There,
yeah.
Malibu's great. The
Oh
pier's
my God,
pretty
it's
cool.
gorgeous.
Pier's pretty cool. And I mean there's a lot of bums everywhere, but it's still cool.
But you know what? I mean, maybe it's because I'm, surrounded by them too here. It just at least the bums are amidst the Pacific. Like that's not a fucking
Right,
bad
right,
gig, you know?
right.
Like
And, it's part of the character of somebody yelling
yeah.
at the walls and the fentanyl
And I
OD.
would give Venice this much. So every morning, I don't know if this is a new thing, but New York could take note. Every morning at around 7 a.m., they hose down, like power wash the entire boardwalk in Venice.
Just to get all the bums off of it.
Well, and to just clean it up because, it gets pretty
Gross.
grimy.
Yeah.
And so I'm guessing this is, the business bureaus have a big part in making sure this happens because they know their bread and butter is tourism.
Right.
But they are really trying to keep it as clean and as inviting and welcoming as they can. Um, but look, there's nothing I saw there that I haven't seen 2 times over going to work.
Right,
So
right.
yeah.
I mean, Venice grown up, we'd go to Venice during the day, and as soon as the sun started setting, you like hop in your car and leave.
Well, it's also really quiet. There's nothing going on in Venice
Yeah.
after like 9 o'clock.
Like the weird shit happens after dark
Yeah.
over there in Venice, and like the weird people show up and stuff.
Well, they got to power wash it.
Yeah,
They got to
and
power
just
wash it
weird crap. I
6
did
hours a
one
day.
time I was walking through Hollywood, and it was like, so the only thing you'd go to Hollywood for growing up in that area is you go to Hollywood for Sunset Boulevard, and you go on Sunset because you had the Key Club, the whiskey, um, what else? What the
Rainbow
the
Room.
Rainbow Room, right? You had all the different places to go to see shows. So we go see shows all the time. And one time I'm walking back from a
Viper
show,
Room.
Viper Room, right? And you walk, and they're all across the street from each other. Key Club and
Hmm.
Viper Room are across the street, and the whiskey's like right there too. And you'd cross this. Remember I was walking down the street one time with my buddy, and we're all, it's chain smoking cigarettes, 2 a.m. I saw some like shitty goth band, London After Midnight, and I looked in the bushes and there was these two bums blowing each other, which was kind of cool. I was like, whoa, it's just two dudes just fucking sucking each other off. And they were bums because they were like, they were bums, right? And I was like, I mean, that's cool, and this was back in like 2003 or something like that. But yeah, and then you had Amoeba Records. That was like the pilgrimage. Everybody that was into like a scene back then would go to Amoeba Music. And for Fisto, I don't know if you know, Amoeba Music was this like 3-story place that
It's still out. It's still there.
Oh no, it's still there. Yeah, it's like
we went there and yeah.
I think it might be in a new place now because they changed it, but it was Amoeba. And it was basically where you went and got CDs and shit back in the day because like, you obviously couldn't buy like, I don't know, the Clash or something like that at Target, right? You had to go, find your Rancid or your like really obscure stuff. And they used to have shows and stuff there. It was 2 stories, a lot of vintage movies and stuff they'd sell. They'd sell a lot of like VHS tapes, DVDs that were like foreign movies that, this is before the internet really. So like, that's where you had to go to get shit if you were into something,
Right.
So you went to Amoeba. That was like the alternative lifestyle kind of stuff, And that was right on Hollywood and Vine. It was right there in the middle of Hollywood, and that was really the only reason to go there. But yeah, the one here's a problem with Los Angeles, and I don't, you can't tell this because Los Angeles has a really interesting history from the silver screen film era, World War II era. Tons of history in Los Angeles, but for some reason, Los Angelenos or whatever hate Los Angeles, so they just tear it down. They're constantly tearing everything down. It's like it constantly gets a new influx of people and they just tear everything down. They tear down restaurants. You go in New York, you probably have like buildings that have been there for 200 years or and the restaurants have been there that long or bars have been that long. And, for some reason, because of the weird like cycle of people coming in and out of Los Angeles, there's no memory. It's like Memento, it's like that movie Memento where you constantly lose everything. So you'll have these great, beautiful restaurants where like, I don't know, Gene Kelly and stuff and Marilyn Monroe shop, ate dinner at or whatever. And they just tear these fucking things down. And more and more and more and more as they're tearing down these great restaurants, whether it's in Hollywood or even in Orange County, where, you have these great surf culture, like, the home of American surf culture comes from San Diego and Orange County. They just tear all this shit down. And instead of putting something new and cool in there, they put these generic, like yuppie Mexican cantinas with the fucking cheesy, like, factory like stuff, and it's just, it's the same. It's a strip mallification of the city. And it's really sad that they do that. It's really sad. Like, they tear down, you have these beautiful houses in the Hollywood Hills and Beverly Hills
Oh
up
my
there.
God, those home the literally going passing those homes is a fucking experience.
Right, and they're kind of creepy. Those streets are creepy, like Mulholland Drive up there, and driving through the hills, like up Cielo Drive, where the Manson murders happened and stuff. And we used to drive there at night all the time. And just, I don't know, Fisto, you've never been to LA, have you?
No, I've been to New York several times, but I've
Well,
never been
so
to LA.
when you're driving in Hollywood, which the two main streets are Hollywood Vine and also Sunset Boulevard. You're driving in Sunset, and you hop right off into like the suburbs of it, kind of into this hills, and you go up, right? You just go up, 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 and now instead of being your California grid kind of city building, it's just a maze. It's like intestines, right? And you just tiny little streets up and down hills, right? And it's all these like, billion-dollar homes that movie stars and stuff live on, right? And it's
Hmm.
creepy, man. There's ghosts up there. Like you could feel the demons, you know what I mean? Right? Like
You can
weird
feel the
shit
demons.
happens behind those fences, like this is like the Manson house and like the Sharon Tate house, and like it's no longer there. It got torn down, but I remember the Prince house was cool because it was purple, and you just have all this crazy weird shit up there, and the movie that captured it really well was when Mulholland Drive captured Hollywood very
Oh
well.
yeah.
The other one was Under the Silver Lake, which was a more recent movie that I really liked, and that really captured Los Angeles and like the peripheral Los Angeles kind of vibe. But that's cool. But what they do is they tear that shit down all the time, and you see that in Beverly Hills and in Bel Air. You have these like really rich like Arab oil tycoon type dudes come in there, and they buy these billion-dollar houses, and they tear them down. They tear down the vintage like Malibu bungalows, and you think about Malibu, right? Malibu back in the 50s and 60s was, it used to be called the Malibu Colony, and it was where a bunch of like, what's her name lived up there? What was that writer? Let's see, Dan, help
John
me out.
Didion?
Joan Didion, right?
Yeah.
And these guys, these were bungalows, right? Like little California style post World War II bungalows that people, lived out there, and that's where all like the kind of the California culture came out of. And then you get these like rich fucks, from, wherever they come in there and they buy these houses for like millions of dollars now, and they tear them down and they build ugly like McMansion monstrosities on,
Yeah, ugly as sin shit. Yeah.
and it completely just destroys like the California vibe and culture, I mean, you drive through LA and you see all these Lamborghinis and shit, right? And you look in and it's like some Iranian dude or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's all a lot of that is like this gross like European thing coming into Los Angeles, and they've got no chill, man. A lot of Russians, man. Those Russians and their BMWs and shit driving everywhere. We used to make fun of it all the time. And it just feels more like New York than Los Angeles, because Los Angeles is all about like, I don't know, you should be driving a fucking convertible,
Yeah.
But and that's the problem with LA, is that there's a complete lack of memory to it, that a city like New York does keep. Like
Well, I think we try really fucking hard to keep it. We don't always win the battle, case in point, CBGBs, but
right,
I think the community does a really good job, because that's the thing with New Yorkers is it, to quote a lot of people, it is a shithole, but it's our fucking shithole, and we die on that hill. Like, we can call it a shithole, but you got to do some time here before you can. So,
right, and that's fair. That's how I feel about LA too, and like Los Angeles County. It's like, yeah, it's gross, and but it's also beautiful, and it's my
right,
kind of gross,
right.
Um,
I
you
wonder
know
what the
what?
reason for the difference is. Like why New York would be able to hang on to stuff and LA can't,
I don't know,
or
and
doesn't want to.
well,
I don't know if it's the influx of like LA seems to get a lot more wealthier transplants. So I don't
right,
know if it's that influence taking over. I think New York can hang on a little bit more because we still have such like New Yorkers for the majority. Look at me. We don't tend to leave if we can help it. Um, we don't want to leave New York for better or worse, right?
right. Which is
So
interesting because growing up, I don't have any more friends in Southern California. I think my brother and his wife, my brothers and their families, and they don't have families. They're just married, but don't have kids. My mom and like one or two friends are like the last holdouts. Like
yeah.
for the most part, all my friends have left, and they're in the South, like me, or Texas. Arizona. They've kind of moved east because of just the complete lack of affordability of
Yeah.
Los Angeles. And
Well,
yeah, it's transplants and empty houses with rich people that live there, like, in the summer.
we have empty high rises. That's our issue now, over the last decade is they're building these ginormous high rises that are vacant. Um, just because no real New Yorkers can afford to live in them and they're not getting, and we actually lost, I forget the number in like last year's census, how many New Yorkers left year to year. So we've lost a chunk of our population. Good fucking riddance, I say. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people went to Florida because of the COVID regulations and stuff.
Yeah.
We had the same thing
I was
in
gonna make that
California.
joke.
We had the same thing in California where a lot of Los Angeles was all in on the COVID nonsense, right? But the surrounding counties were not. So we kind of had like a respite. Like I went and visited my friend, not my friend, my brother in Orange County during COVID, and I'm gonna go to Target, and I'm like, oh, great, I'm gonna have to wear a mask. And he's like, what are you, like a faggot or something, bro? Take that off, Because in Orange County they did not do the mask thing at all. And it's interesting because that was like the Orange County growing up was the more yuppie place, and then they kind of refused to do any of the COVID stuff. But yeah, I mean, that did kill a lot of the population in Southern California. They all bounced. A
Well,
lot
I
of
don't
the
even know that it was the politics of COVID itself that did it. It was the idea of going through a New York summer, or rather New York winter, quarantined.
oh right in
'Cause
an
you
apartment.
don't you don't realize how like little, this is another thing that I fucking loved about LA is how spacious it is, right? You don't have space in New York City. It's so inundated, and so overpopulated and everything is small. So the idea for a lot of the people that aren't New Yorkers and weren't used to living under these conditions, like being quarantined with really nowhere to go and not much to do for however many months it was, this is when the majority of them just up and went back home, which
Right.
was
That must have been
really
madness inducing. I mean, during COVID, I spent most of the time during COVID out of the country, but my wife refused to do any COVID stuff. She was like, fuck it, I'm not doing any COVID stuff. I don't have to wear a mask. I'm definitely not putting a mask on our kid because she's freaking 3, it's retarded. Um,
yeah.
but so we just avoided places that did COVID rules and stuff, and we lived in Ventura at the time, which is kind of right north of Malibu. If you follow the one highway up north past Malibu, the next thing is Ventura. And one of the good things about living there is that we can go places on the weekend. So we went hiking basically every weekend.
Yeah.
We were on a hike or at the beach or whatever. So we just none of the stuff bothered us really because of that. It was just a inconvenience where you had to walk into Starbucks and they're like, "Oh, sir, put on a mask." I'm like, I can't. I'm drinking. Sorry, dude. I can't wear a mask.
I can't. I'm drinking.
Yeah, like or the absurdity. I remember I was at this fucking Mexican restaurant, right? And I was standing there, waiting to like get seated, right, or talk to the maitre d' or whatever, right, the host. And next to me, there was all these tables outdoors, right, and nobody had a mask on. They were eating their Mexican food, right. And this dude looks at me and goes, "Oh, sir, you got to wear a mask." And I'm like, "But these motherfuckers, like a foot away from me, are not wearing masks." "Oh, well, they're eating." I'm like, that is just absurd. Like, I'm not putting on a mask.
Yeah.
So I can take it off when I sit down a foot away from where I'm standing. Like, I'm just not going to go ahead and not do that, And he's like, "Yeah, it's dumb." I'm like, "No, I know it's dumb. Aren't you embarrassed to like freaking, ask me to do that, But yeah, I don't know. I like both. I like Los Angeles. I only briefly spent some time in New York. I never really got the experience. But we're getting close to our end time. But I wanted to ask one thing that's really important to me, right?
Sure.
One thing.
Oh, it's going to be not a million things, right? Just calm yourself there, Fisto, right?
Okay.
What what I wanted to ask is from an artistic standpoint, right? And this is something I've been thinking about this week while I'm driving and listening to Lana Del Rey and being sad on my way to work. How come some people are creative? How come, like, okay, why is it that a country like Russia, for example, in the 19th century has all this creative energy? You got Tolstoy and Gogol and all these, like, and Tchaikovsky and stuff. And then you have a country like China that has no literary, like, history.
As I'm reading Master and Margarita right now, yeah.
Right, and I just read that recently and I really enjoyed
Did you?
it. Yeah, I like the cat demon thing that, like,
Oh my God. I think it's so like I don't read a lot of what is it, magical realism.
Hmm.
It's not my go-to genre. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but I'm definitely having fun like
Right.
going.
He's just a drunken, creepy cat demon. It's really,
Mhm.
it's a really weird book, and the whole witch thing, and she's flying. I don't know if you've gotten that far
I
yet.
didn't know that he burned the first manuscript because he was terrified of, like being in
Yeah.
prison and down the Dostoevsky route. And then he rewrote it from memory.
Right.
That's
It's
why.
wild, you know?
Meanwhile, I'm bitching about like I don't have enough time to write my little
I know
short story.
this guy's like memorizing the brothers Karamazov in the Gulag and stuff, and
Literally.
yeah, he's like
When
fucking
some people complain, I'm like, man, just do the fucking thing.
right.
Like,
So I'm always interested in the idea of like where the does creativity come from. You tend to see creativity like come out in scenes, you know, and like you have the Russian era scenes and stuff, and you have a lot of European countries have their own kind of like scene. Like French literature is very different than Russian literature, even from the
right.
same era. British literature is very different.
American literature,
American literature
Steinbeck.
has
Yeah.
different scenes. The South, the South has a huge literary tradition. I think the best American literature comes from the South. While like the Midwest also has its own thing. And I talked to Caleb and stuff about it because he's a Midwestern from Indianapolis also, and he talks about like the whole Midwest scene, and you have these scenes kind of organically explode on the ground, whether it's literature or music, and how does that still exist in our current digital age, right?
Mhm.
Like, can that happen? You mentioned CBGB, right? CBGB was part of that glam rock early New York punk scene. I was actually on a Bowie kick lately, but I mean, Blondie comes out of the CBGB scene, right? I love Blondie.
Yeah, were they the first ones to play CBGBs? Or
I
am I?
think so. She might have been, yeah. And then you know, in California, you have our scenes. You have like the hardcore scene that came out of Orange
And
County,
you gave us glam rock, which,
right?
a guilty pleasure of mine. I will motley my crew all fucking
Yeah,
day.
yeah. We, the Viper Room Guns N'
Yeah.
Roses era,
Oh
straight
my
out of
God,
Hollywood,
yeah. What
right?
a time to be alive, man.
Right. I missed that one. I was too young for that one. I don't think I
Same,
was even in
same.
the US when that happened, right? But like, yeah, the whole like, freaking weird glam rock thing, and then you got your Seattle scene that popped out, and like, from a literature standpoint, you do tend to have this monolithic, you walk into Barnes and Noble, right? And I actually walked into Barnes and Noble on Friday, and you look at the new books or the books on sale, like on the tables and stuff, and it's all
What, they're
fucking,
all the same? Is
it's
that
all
what
the
you
same, right?
Yes. Yes.
There's no scene, there's nothing
No
there,
scene.
And the one thing, if I had to criticize New York and Los Angeles, they both suck, is they both have a sense of death about them. Like they're dead scenes that it's like a one time they were youthful and energetic, and now the people, the blondies and the the freaking Axl Roses of each respective scene is gone, and it's been replaced by business people,
You know what I'm gonna blame? And this is where my inner Ted Kaczynski comes out. I'm gonna fucking blame technology for a lot of that.
Right.
Um, I'm gonna be honest. I think it boils down to technology and screens taking over the better parts of our daily existence, over like how it's exponentially grown over the past 20 years. Um, to
Yeah.
be a creative is such a like I don't know how to word it. Like it has to be a mindful act now. Like you have to actually like set a set time to be creative. Like you need to like turn off your phone, turn off your TV, put the fucking iWatch away or whatever. Like you have to disconnect so much to like channel that inner creativity. And it's funny we're talking about this like while we're on a Zoom, so
Right. Right. That's the irony of it, right? Is that we've all
exactly. This is
met
the
through
only way we can
Substack.
connect is like through technology, but so double-edged sword.
Right. Right.
So
But yeah, I mean, can we have a scene anymore? Is there the possibility of and you hear a lot of, New York recently has the whole dime square thing going on, which I know nothing about, right?
yeah.
Um, and that I talked about it on the podcast with a few people that are from New York, and it's like, is that even real? That whole thing feels like my dog's barking at my other dog now. That whole thing. One sec.
It's kind of making me think. Sue, you still there?
I'm here.
It's making me think. Where do scenes come from? Scenes come from groups of people with a shared cultural experience.
Exactly.
And that cultural experience has been shattered through, not just technology. I mean, the technology is a symptom of that process, of that, you joked about Ted Kaczynski. It's going back to
that wasn't even a joke, Christy. That I'm curious about him.
Yeah, it's going back to the industrialization, the rise of technology, people moving into cities, and now we've got this technological thing where we're staring into our phones because the reality has just gotten so horrible. We have to cope.
Yeah.
And there it is.
Right. And like I said earlier, like my wife and my daughter, they watch all these stupid like TikTok. Do you hear my dog breathing all hard? She's all biting.
You probably want to go outside or like get off the fucking.
She's like biting my finger right now. Anyways, they watch these TikTok videos, and there's all these little goth girls and stuff on the TikTok videos, right? But it's all fake.
My niece called me a TikTok girl. She said I look like I said, excuse me?
Right.
I'm what the TikTok girls want to look like.
Well, you know what there is not on any of those videos? There's no dudes. I feel like when I was young, the majority of like the music scenes, there was the goth girls and the punk girls and stuff.
And the alt rock chick. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was mostly dudes. It was the guys that were into that shit. You know what I mean? And their girlfriends like kind of followed along, And now you don't see that anymore. You will see like every girl I run into that's in their 20s or a teenager here is some sort of a alt girl, of some sort, right? Kind of a mishmash of all the different like, genres of the past. But there's all the dudes are just slobs. So you'll have like hot goth girl and bro.
Just bro, yeah.
And by bro, I don't mean like even like a bro in the sense of the bro.
Hey, bro.
I'm just some dude,
Dude,
Why, you beast. But so like it's like there's a scene, but it's not a real scene. There's no goth clips.
I was gonna say, do you think that it's a physical manifestation of trying to like create or force a creativity that doesn't really exist? Like it's the only way they cling to this like outward appearance. It's funny that you and I mentioned earlier, like we are not real goths because we didn't have the fucking time or energy to spend 6 hours like looking like one.
Right.
Meanwhile, they're not real goths, but they're like spending 6 hours to look like one. It's like the ultimate.
Right. It's like they're spending all this time so they can go to the anime convention so they can take pictures,
Right.
But there's no goth club anymore. There's no punk rock club.
All of them have pretty much closed in the city too. I mean, there's like the big ones.
Right.
It's wearing culture like a skin suit.
Right. Yeah. Right. It's like a simulacra where now there's people that look goth and they look like they were hanging out in freaking London 1985. With Robert Smith and Susie Sue, right, and Morrissey, but there is no physical world anymore of that. It's all for like a TikTok video,
Yeah, it's all for the camera.
Right. And it's almost all ironic because, and then you see them on the street the next day and they're wearing sweatpants, and they're not like going to like perversion in Hollywood, which I think still exists right now. But you know what I mean? It's all this very performative simulacra, very Baudrillarian in its whole sense.
It's not to like, again, shit on the younger generation, but their life is kind of a performance. When you're doing it constantly for a screen, what else can you call yourself?
Right. Right. I'm gonna end this real quick, but one of the funny things, my friend Chris and I, Chris the philosopher, you can listen to him talk on the podcast earlier this year. And eventually I'll get his ass over it one more time. He's just too busy living in California.
Whatever.
We used to go hiking, and one time we were joking around, and we were saying, like guys like Schopenhauer and Dostoevsky and all these existentialist dudes from from back in the day, they're having like Kafka had a freaking like breakdown because he saw some horse getting beat or something like that. None of those dudes could handle the shit we live through today. All right. I just like if Dostoevsky could barely fucking handle like gambling in Paris, you know, with a little bit of syphilis, you know, how is that? Can you
Or a
imagine?
mild case.
Yeah, can you imagine
Okay.
Dostoevsky having fucking Twitter? You know, like we never get
My God.
anything
It
out of
would
that
break
dude.
him. It would break him.
Yeah, he'd be playing Fortnite, buying every skin, and then freaking like freaking TikToking with like random hoe bags and stuff, and there would be nothing written. You know, right
No.
now there's probably like a million Dostoevskys living in their basement, completely brain rotted by like the internet. You know,
Dopamine blasted
yeah, just dopamine
24/7.
blasted. Like, yeah, you know what? The gulag was rough, Dostoevsky, but you've never lived through our dopamine pumps that we're living through. You know, the
Yeah,
fact that I
right.
can even read a book is a goddamn miracle. You know what I mean?
I
Right.
have to like I've been off of so Substack is the only social media, if you want to call it that I have. I've
Same.
been off the other socials for a while now, and I don't have any ambition to go back. And it's just you have to make an actual choice. Like somebody asked, I think one of the Fisto, you tagged me in it. I forget his name, but one of the co-founders of Substack asked, "How does anybody in New York ever get
Oh
any
yeah.
writing done?" And you just fucking do. Barely is the answer. Like literally, you just make a conscious effort, like a real effort to sit your ass down
Hear
somewhere.
that, Hamish? You hear that, Hamish, or however you say your name?
Yeah,
I
we don't
You
need
just gotta
Substack.
fucking do it. You
We
just
don't need
gotta fucking do
Substack
it.
turning into fucking sub talk or whatever.
tell them
Uh,
please.
like
If
the
I see if the day that Substack gets reels or stories or whatever the fuck they're called now is the day I'm out.
And me
Like
too. If I see some girl
I'm
shaking
so
her
out.
ass on Substack and it's not ironic or funny, well, no,
Yeah.
even if it's ironic and funny, I still hate it. I don't want to.
Still hate it.
I
And
don't I don't need any more irony or funny in my life. I got
yeah,
that shit.
I'm
And
done.
like yeah, I'm done.
I need sad girl stories is what I need.
Yes.
That's what I want.
And
So
I'm in the sad boy stories right now. Like I'm
yeah.
gonna go down my Stephen King route. I'm gonna, read more Nabokov, speaking of Russians that we haven't mentioned.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've never read Lolita, and
What?
I've never really read Nabokov. I think I read some Nabokov, but I've
He's
never.
so freaking good.
His two big
I
ones
think
I
he's
haven't read. I
super
haven't read Lolita
underrated.
or Pale Fire, and I'm a total sinner on my Slavic.
I obviously I've read Lolita dozens of times. I just finished reading Laughter in the Dark like a month or two ago, and that one was fantastic. So
Maybe I need to add that to my list of things to read. I'm
yeah,
reading the Magic Mountain for the first time. Actually, I take it back. I started reading the Magic Mountain and I wasn't in the mood for it, and now I'm reading it again, and it's a really great freaking novel. Um,
yeah.
but I mean, ultimately, is like we are we we can't blame these young kids
I
when
don't.
we rot their fucking brain from birth.
Yeah.
You know, their brains are rotted. They're in a complete fake simulacrum. We don't let them go outside. We don't let them do anything, you know, and they're completely like just brain dead, you know. And I feel sorry for them, you know. I feel sorry for them because it's like they're living in a cultural rot, you know, and everything is fake and performative and obnoxious, and it's worse than ever. You know, you watch some of these YouTube videos of these like influencer types, you know, and they're all made to look like reality shows, but you know they're fake as fuck, right?
Oh, like the reaction videos, they're all
Yeah.
staged and shit. Like Jesus Christ,
And
dude.
then
Why would
this
I
is
want
the
to watch somebody react to something when I would just
I
do
don't
it
fucking
myself?
know.
I don't know, but these people are just fed on the slop. They're just slurping the slop, you know, and it's just like
Slurping the slop.
it's poison, man. It's poison, and I hate it. Like, honestly, as much as I enjoy the internet and being friends with you guys and having this podcast, if I could detonate some kind of EMP blast that banished the internet and banished us to like,
I'd support you.
yeah,
Internet Delinda-esque.
Yes.
you know, just all technology. If we went back to like the gaslight, you know, Victorian era, I'd be okay. I'd be happy, you know. And like some of the, you know, I spent a lot of time deploying with the military, and I deployed to like all kinds of goddamn godforsaken places, you know, where I had no internet service whatsoever. And like even if you like Google Map the place, it just doesn't even exist on Google Maps. And God, that was paradise, you know, not having to look at your phone every day, or like having that weird like just constant, you know, and you have to consciously disconnect yourself from it.
Mhm.
And you know, you have like you're stuck in that kind of like gambler's fallacy where you feel like you're missing something. Like, am I going to get off? But now the
Yeah.
more we've lived through, like, all our social media is nonsense. Like Facebook, you don't even have your old friends and family on there anymore.
No, you just have someone's uncle yelling at you over the vaccine. Like
Right.
what?
And or just ads. So you guys, you can probably back me up on this, right? Back in the early social media days, the MySpace, early Facebook, that whole era, you used to meet somebody, right? You met Elizabeth at the bar, right? And you kind of got her last name, and you went on Facebook or whatever, and you typed in Elizabeth from the bar, and bam, she'd pop up, right? And now you connected.
Right.
You can't do that anymore. Nobody's real on the internet anymore. It's completely fake. Right? And I would say even a decade ago, you're like, oh, hey, I wonder what Katie's doing. My ex-girlfriend Katie, I want to see if she's fat or not, So you type in like Katie Jones, and then like you're like, oh God, look at her husband, what a fucking mutant, or whatever, or oh no, she's still hot, yay, or something like that, right? I'm sure you guys have all.
Yay.
You've got all have done this, right? You know what I mean? Like, stalked ex-girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever
this is one of the things the internet should be for. Like,
that's what it was for, right? You can't do that anymore. Like, think of 5 people, like, do an experiment right now. Think of 5 people you like dated or knew from like middle school or something, that you will not be able to find them anymore.
Well, because I blocked them all, but yes.
Well, yeah, but a decade ago you could find like your old elementary school teacher, But you can't do that anymore because everybody on the internet is fake or a bot or some kind of a fake bot pervert of some sort, And
that's what happened with Instagram when I was kind of way over it. I was like, I don't even see my own fucking friends on this thing anymore.
Right,
like, everything is an influencer or an ad or celebrity.
Right. Like I have it because
or video on a photograph app. Like what?
Right, like I have it right here. I'm holding it in my fucking hand right now, all right? And I'm gonna open it because I want to do a little experiment, and I'm gonna look at my pictures real fast. And it's somebody I don't know, somebody I don't know, somebody I don't know,
Yeah.
some ad for Ralph Fiennes movie, some pervert, some weird goth chick that I've never met before. A bunch of girls shaking their ass, and somebody crying, some cat dressed up as the Joker.
Oh my God, the crying videos are the worst. Those get on my fucking nerves.
Yeah. A post from myself from like a year ago. It's weird. Yeah, this is all dumb. Like there's nothing on there. It doesn't even tell you.
There's nothing to learn or see or no.
It's funny. I Googled one of my old high school friends just now. He's a professor at the University of Massachusetts.
Look at that.
He's written a couple of books. Looks like a freaking weirdo, but just about what I would expect, to be honest. That's funny.
I maybe
the internet actually worked.
Maybe I hung out with losers that were losers and they ended up losers. So I don't know, I
don't know. I haven't thought about the guy in like 10 years, and all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, there he is. Yep, that's about what I expected.
Listen, man. Let me tell you a quick story real fast, and then we're gonna call it end, right?
Sounds good.
So when I was in middle school, right? My friend the Satchel. I don't know if he listens to this, but my friend the Satchel and I were still friends after all these years. We weren't the very best students, kind of derelicts, right? And we were in this science class, and it was like a smart kid AP science class, and there was this bitch ass teacher named Mrs. Lowell. I'm calling her out by name because I hate her. She's probably dead, but good riddance. I hated her and she hated me. It was fair and all, right? And during our dissection of the frog, she looked at me and my friend Zach and she said, "You guys are losers and you're going to end up losers and you should be more like Marcy." All right. And Marcy was like this little blonde preppy girl, right? That I had this huge crush on. Anyways, she wouldn't look twice at me because she was like this rich surfer girl, and I was just, I was a loser, it was me. I was a punk rock guy with my Marilyn Manson t-shirt and shit, Anyways, so this teacher in front of everybody calls me a fucking loser, and I'm going to end up in prison or something like that, right?
Yep.
Well, a few years later, I find out that her daughter was in porn, so I was like, right, And then
that'll show her.
I ran into the person that she said I should be more like. Actually just got out of prison for dealing drugs like heroin or something.
Nice.
Like that. And I was like, ha!
Good.
Fuck you, Mrs. Lowell. I am now a world famous podcaster. Right? I made it, you
I
know?
made it.
But yeah, it
Was that
always
the
cracks
meanest
me
thing
up.
a teacher was that the meanest thing a teacher had ever said to you?
Probably that I didn't black out or out of my memory, But yeah, she definitely like said that we were going to end up nobodies and losers, and we're just pathetic people.
Like, people
And
like
like,
that don't deserve to be fucking like should not be
no,
teachers.
she's horrible. And
Never forget that child.
like she was wrong. I graduated high school with a 1.89 GPA, lady. I'm successful. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm a goddamn
The first
podcaster now.
I was told by a substitute teacher once that I had a natural disdain for authority and that I would just end up arrested by the time I was 21. Meanwhile, lady, I've never been fucking arrested. Damn well sure have tried, so in your face.
Yeah, I've never been arrested either. I mean, I probably should have been arrested numerous
Oh yeah,
times as I
for
was
sure.
growing up. But yeah, I like I said, it's like I look at some of the people that were like the good kids and they're all losers or like druggies or something like that. And here I am, like the old, middle school stoner that like showed up to school sometimes, and then like my younger brother spent basically the entirety of 7th and 8th grade in detention because he would refuse to not chew gum. So there was just he just lived. He had like an extra period of detention every day. You know?
I'll just say this. I'll just say this. I feel like in maybe a few years we could have one of my old ex-students on and you guys would realize like, hey, I collect kids like you like Pokemon.
Right, right. I mean,
I'm
that's
thinking of some of the students that come by and they're exactly the kind
Well,
of
there's
kids that would
something
be
to be
told that
said,
shit.
and I don't know, we could probably wrap it up there. You can't peak in high school. The
right.
kids
No,
who peak in
fucking
high
no, you
school,
cannot. Oh my God,
yeah,
if you
there's
peak
a
in high
lot more
school,
life to be learned. Like
woof.
all the chicks that were the hottest in high school have
Yeah,
fucking like
exactly. Exactly.
plummeted. All the bright stars,
Exactly.
who showed up to class early
Don't
and got the
peak.
straight
Don't
A's.
peak. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I had a good history teacher in
Do
high
not.
school. I had a great history teacher once, and he told me he actually hurt my feelings a little bit, made me laugh. I'll remember this for the rest of my life. We in California we had the exit exams. I don't know if you guys have those in your state.
We had the region, so I'm
We have
assuming
something
it's
like that, yeah.
similar.
And
Right.
end of course exams they call them, but
Yeah.
Well, he
anyway.
he he's announcing like the results, right? We all got the results, right? And he's like, I don't really announce these results, it's tend to be private, but I wanted to mention to you guys that in this class right now, we have the highest scoring for the Los Angeles and Long Beach Unified School District in our class for social studies and history, right? Also, the same person who has the highest score out of the entire school district on this test has the lowest grade in my class. He literally has a 0, hasn't done one goddamn
Wow.
assignment. And I'm like, I'm guessing you're talking
That's
about me,
me.
bro.
Like, hey, what's up, bro?
Yeah.
That's
He's
funny.
like, Alex, you're a fucking loser. And I'm like, thank you, bro. I appreciate that. And I did have a philosophy teacher in high school that made a bet with me. This was during the like I believe the early like Obama era, right? Like pre-Obama, before he even ran. And he was a black dude, and we argued, and he said that there's no way a black man will beat Hillary Clinton. And I said, bet you motherfucker $100 that Hillary Clinton, I'm like, is gonna lose, right? To Obama. And 2 years later, I ran into that bitch in a bar, and I made him fucking buy me drinks all night.
Goddamn right.
I was like, I remember, motherfucker. I remember. Like, you owe me money. But, anyways, it was wonderful having you guys on, like usual,
Yeah.
Sudanna.
Likewise.
Before I want you to come back, because shit, we've talked for like almost goddamn 4 hours.
I know. I
Or
apologize to the
three.
community. I'm so sorry. This is usually how it runs with me.
No, this is
All
going to be
good.
a fantastic episode. I think everybody's going to really like it, except for the trad cats are going to delete me for being a magician now.
Well,
Okay.
hey, at least you got that. At least you got that going right at the beginning.
I know,
So
I
we
know.
keep time.
So
They
they
might
can
have
take,
Very
forgotten
courteous
about it
of
by
you.
now. Don't remind them.
yeah, I
Very
have
courteous
it.
of you.
It's in 1 hour. I own a black cat also, so I need to go do some more magic of some sort.
You can
Um,
warm up.
yeah, but before we go, Susanna, do you have anything you would like to shill or talk about? Like, I want all the listeners to like, follow you on Substack and read all your sad girl stories that inspire me to write my own sad boy stories because I like dwelling
I'm
in.
hoping I write some funny girl, like not as depressing stories because I don't think I'm ultimately always that person. Um, it is something that just has a way of coming out like that, like we mentioned, is our natural inclination.
Right.
But there's a lot of, diversity to be seen within ourselves, just like us talking about a New York girl who has such an affinity for the Pacific. Um, so I mean, if anything, I'm going to try and embrace other aspects of my writing, of my personality. But you know what it is? I don't plan any of this. Literally, it's like a week to week, whatever the vibe is.
Right. That's how I roll too.
Honestly, I don't like. I know writers have a process, and I kind of laugh because I'm like, I really don't. My only
No.
to get it done. So, for better or worse, it is what it is. And if it resonates with people, that's great too. So, I'm just happy to be here. Honestly, people say that all the time. Like, if I won any kind of a fucking award, that would be my speeches. I'm just happy to be invited.
Right.
So,
No, it was wonderful. And
just happy to play the game.
yeah, seriously.
I think ultimately being Eastern Europeans or Eastern European adjacent people, I think that like existential absurdism is our kind of go-to.
That's our setting. That's our natural
That's our setting, right?
It's not that
it's not that we're depressed, is that we just see the stupid absurdity in the world, you know? And that's why we can get joy out of, you know, a real sad, you know, book. We're not like constantly depressed like the British are, you know? The British are depressed people all the time, you know, or those Nordics up there writing their depressing crime mysteries and stuff.
I mean, if you had to eat British food, I'd be fucking suicidal.
Right. Or if I lived in fucking on some fjord or whatever the fuck up there in some freezing eating like it's whatever fucking rotten fish that those Finnish people eat or whatever the fuck they do, listening to black metal and playing Dungeons and Dragons all day. No, we accept the funny stuff and the absurdities of life, you know. Now we just drink it away like you're supposed to, you know.
That's really what it is. I say it all the time. I take none of this seriously, to be quite frank, which is probably why I don't have tangible like processes or like a 5-year fucking plan for this. I should maybe. It's all just so absurd. Like at the end of it, just kind of recognize the absurdity of it all and just embrace it. We're here for a really short time, so why
just
not?
fucking do it. Right. Just do it. And then like, you know, you're not going to be writing any of those like Substack lit talk things or whatever where it's like 10 ways to improve your writing. No. It's like, no, man, listen, I write, and if you don't like it, then you can go
don't come to me to improve your writing.
Yeah.
I didn't even spell check this shit.
Yeah, so. I graduated with 1.5 because people criticize my like misspelling sometimes, and I'm like,
whatever.
You actually correct your spelling? Like, okay, you know, I don't know how to read, man. I'm literally like semi-retarded half the time, you know, because I'm so tired. And it's like you know, you want me to like spell correctly. That implies me caring about you, and I don't. You know what I mean?
Like, I'm literally writing this shit on the train next to the like 7 homeless men in a fist fight next to me. Do you think spell check was gonna happen today?
Right. It's if you want that, you can go somewhere else.
And look, I don't take away from that. There's a lot of great writers that are doing phenomenal things on the platform, and for stories like that, go to them.
Right.
If you want to hear about that time that I listened to Nirvana on the way home and got a free cannoli and decided I wasn't going to jump the Brooklyn Bridge, you may want to read my work. So
Right. Maybe I'll write my story about how I got the nickname William Shatner.
That would be a good one.
As in Shat, you know, as in Shat instead of you know, like
you put the Shat in Shatner.
Yeah, I put the Shat in Shatner, and it involved.
I want to hear this story.
It involved copious amounts of alcohol and a 48-hour Las Vegas blackout, where I woke up halfway in the desert, going back towards Los Angeles.
Were you in Caesar's Palace?
I was in. I don't even know where I was. There was spearmint rhino involved in there, and I woke up in the middle. I was sitting bitch in the back of my friend's car, and my friend Lindsay looks over from the passenger seat and goes, "Fuck you! I never want to talk to you again." And I'm like, "What did I do?"
That's when you came out from the blackout?
Yeah, in the desert, 2 days later. And my brother the next day calls me, goes, "Hey man, I ran into Lindsay and she told me to fuck off and that she doesn't want to talk to me or you ever again. And what did you do?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
Right.
And then I had to call my bank and tell them that my card disappeared because it had strange thousands of dollars worth of charges. And I was like, yeah, I have no idea where those came from. I really didn't. So
I definitely did not buy a tiger off of my
It was very much like that. And then from that on, they just called me William Shatner. I might have tried to take a dump on my friend's face while he was passed out on the hotel.
Was that what you did to Lindsay? Is that why she won't talk to
you? No, she was witness to it though. And she was very upset.
That makes sense.
my friend dodged it at the last minute, you know. But I wrecked the hotel room and made a scene, and like, yeah, it was interesting. At one point I was in a limo with a bunch of black strippers, which is really funny. But yeah, it was a long story.
Save that for next time. We'll save.
I will save it for next time. All right, guys. Hey, thank you for listening. Well, first of all, thank you, Fisto and Sedana, for being on. Sorry about the motorcycle guy. Now the same asshole that's riding a motorcycle has a fucking leaf blower. He's got a leaf blower and he's leaf blowing his boat. God damn it, man.
Full circle.
All right, never again on a Sunday. Lesson learned.
Yeah, dude, man. And well, thank you for all the listeners. And no, I do not really engage in black magic. It's just for fun. Maybe. I don't know, right? But thanks for listening. Please like, share, comment, and please hop on Spotify and follow the podcast. Hop on YouTube, follow the podcast. Why? Because you know what? It's just cool. You know, it's cool to do that for me. I appreciate it. And we will be back probably on Wednesday, and we'll have more stuff for you and more discussions. And maybe we'll do another tarot reading, or maybe we'll throw some bones or something like that. Or
you can use the live feature for your tarot readings on.
Right. Or maybe I'll do the I Ching, you know, the I Ching thing with the numbers, or you toss a dice or some shit like that in some Chinese black magic, you know. Maybe, you know what, I'm Eastern European. I should be able to read you some coffee grounds or tea leaves, right? They're into
I was just going to say my mom and grandma would kill it, like the coffee.
Yeah, the coffee reading thing. That's like an Eastern European thing, right?
Fucking huge.
Have you ever heard of that shit, Fisto?
No.
The Eastern European babushkas.
Man.
The
babushkas, yeah.
They read the coffee grounds, man. It's straight up gypsy magic shit, right? But
my
anyways,
grandmother used to read beans. She would like use beans and like throw them like dice, and then like however they formed, she would like tell your future. It was quite fascinating, weird shit.
Yeah, every time I read my own future, it just says everything will be fake and gay, and it's just like, damn it, so accurate.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Sounds right. All right, guys, have a good day. Happy Sunday. And this will be out probably Wednesday. Okay, let's be honest. But when you're listening to this, it will be Wednesday because another episode is dropping tomorrow. So by the time this is fully edited and ready to go, it will be Wednesday. And it was wonderful. I'll talk to you guys on Substack, and good night.